If you're vibe coding an app, one of the biggest challenges that you'll have is security. In this live coding session, we actually walk through all of the details that you need in order to know how to properly secure your app. Now, this is for a beginner person so that they can understand the core concepts. What we did is basically try to break down those core concepts into very simple sort of process, and so that everybody can kind of understand the overall concepts. And in later videos, we're going to go a lot more deep. What we use is Auth0 as our authentication layer. They're a pretty good company. They have a pretty good reputation. I've used them for years. So we took Auth0, and what we did is this vibe coded app that we were working on. This is week 3 of this session. And what we've done now is basically put a security layer on top of it so that users can log in and have a user profile. So we're going to walk through that in this particular process. Also, we now have a sign up page where you can click on sign in, and you could either log in or you could click on sign up, and that'll allow you to sign up in the app. So the goal here is to give you a full overall walkthrough on how to secure and set up your vibe coding app. We also showed you how you can use Cloudflare KV to store sort of the authentication details after you log in with your application or a new user registered. Now, this video is part of a series that we're doing, which is a weekly session on vibe coding from scratch. So every Friday at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. we're here vibe coding live. So this is actually a live working session. You could join the live groups any single time. And we're also launching in this particular video my new school community, which is called Vibe Code to Profit. Join and share your experience, share the problems that you're having. And my goal is to kind of help you, walk you through the process of vibe coding your first application or launching a product. And that's what we're doing here. So with that, enjoy the video. And if you have any comments, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll see you in the next one. We got a lot of stuff to go through this week, so we're going to go pretty fast, and I'm going to try to cover some high level concepts. Thanks for joining again. We got 3 people inside of here, so I appreciate you guys joining. Say hi in the chat. I'd love to know who you are and what's going on, just where you're from even. That'd be fantastic. First thing, have an announcement. So I've decided that it makes sense to start an actual community, a community where we could, 1, drop our idea. So for example, if you're working on a particular project, drop it inside of there, and at least we could what you're working on. So that's what this is about Coding School. I'll talk about it more in a sec. But the goal is that you as an individual, you get some feedback on what you're working on. 2, you could basically get some advice. We could troubleshoot together. We could figure out problems. That's the goal. For me, as I evolve and I'm thinking about this from a business standpoint, this channel is about coding and business, entrepreneurship and growth, sales, and trying to make money. What I've decided is we're going to open up this group, which I'm calling now Vibe Code to Profit. This is brand new as of last night. Vibe Code to Profit. That's the group. And the mission is to basically attract developers and entrepreneurs and builders, people that like to just build things, to join the group and build a community. Share your wins, share your losses, share the challenges that you're having. And my commitment to you is that you post a problem inside of there and I will respond to it. And I will get you the feedback and give you the direction. And the goal is that when we do these group calls, I'm going to also try to answer questions. In fact, in the group, we're going to do a group call, which is more of an interactive call on a regular basis. I haven't figured out a schedule for that yet, but stay tuned, where we could go back and forth. You could share your problems and I could tell you things that I've learned or figured out in the past, or somebody else in the group could share their opinion. So that's going to be the goal. This is not going to be free forever. I want to stress this right off the top. Okay, this is going to be a paid group. However, on the immediate, to get people interested, is going to be for the first 20. I'm putting that number. I might change it later on, but for the first 20 people, it's going to be free for life. Period. You join the group, you will never have to pay a single dime. That being said, as the group gets bigger, it's going to take up more of my time to manage the group, etc. And the reality is we're running a business here, so we got to make money somehow. And so we're going to put a paywall to get it going. But I would love for you guys to join in on the group and let me know your thoughts if you got questions. I'm reading your comment here. I tried to move Cloudflare workers when AWS went down offline, but unsuccessful. Somebody posted on the chat, they were like, don't use AWS. I actually posted a video on my channel about AWS. I want to be clear with this. Every service goes down. In fact, Cloudflare has had their share of outages. One of the things that you can do to mitigate your risk is to spread load across multiple different web services. And Cloudflare is by far one of the best platforms and solutions to be able to mitigate that risk at a cost that is significantly cheaper. So keep that in mind. Hopefully you're going to be able to figure it out. And if not, then message me, let me know what problems you're having and we'll try to figure it out there. Okay. I want to build with Cloudflare too, but I'm unsure of how to do things. It's really difficult to find tutorials. Hey, I hear you 100% on this. This is a real problem in the industry. I wrote a post recently and nobody paid any attention to me. So I'll share this with you just because you're sharing it to me. Like I said, we're going to get started in a few minutes here. So on Reddit, I've been posting on Reddit of recently because I like the vibes on Reddit. So I posted this. I think I posted it with the wrong title because nobody paid any attention to me. They're like, yeah, we don't know what you're talking about. Here, this is the post that I made. I posted this and I was like, why isn't Cloudflare Connect on YouTube? For those who don't know, Cloudflare Connect is a new event, brand new event. They had it before, but they used to do it in cities. And this is the first event that they did in Vegas and streamed it on their own services. They haven't streamed it on YouTube. And I was like, what are these people doing? So if you go to YouTube right now and you do Cloudflare Connect, let's see if it's there. Okay, here we got a couple of playlist items. Look at this. It's a 15 minutes video, 15 minutes thing. Let me see if there's any. Okay, so a couple of 20-second, 27 minutes, just a bunch of promotional type stuff. On their official channel, right, you cannot find the Cloudflare event that actually talked about Cloudflare in any kind of seriousness. This is 7 months ago. And this event just happened recently, 1 month ago. Look at this. It's the craziest thing. I'm like, I haven't seen a company this big butchered their marketing so terribly before. I just haven't seen it. So I hear you're paying 100%. This is a real problem with Cloudflare altogether. They just don't know how to attract people. And funny enough, I got 6 upvotes on this, which is pretty low for me. Normally my posts get a pretty good thing. This guy said, Cloudflare has 1 million followers on LinkedIn. They aren't trying to market to regular people, targeted to regular people. I was like, Cloudflare is missing the mark. They're not marketing to regular people. He was like, yeah, they don't need the regular people. And I told him, I said, that's fair. But I was like, there's 42 million developers that are across the globe, depending on who's counting. 1 million people is like nothing. You should be marketing more. Anyway, nobody figured that out. I guarantee you, come back and talk to me in a year when this channel blows up because I'm diehard on Cloudflare and everybody starts to take me seriously. And then Cloudflare recognize that this guy is legit. We're going to charge them for all of the people that I sent to Cloudflare. Because right now they don't pay me for this stuff. Yeah, no, I totally hear you on that. We're going to do some tutorials on that. So here's my first action to you guys. Okay, I got 5 people on here. So I want to see 5 people join in the group. Okay, and to specifically for you unknown Do4Ville, I think that's your name. I'm working on a classroom. And the classroom is, there's going to be a Cloudflare 101, like proper inside of here tutorial. And there's going to be tutorials obviously on vibe coding. I'm going to work through all of the problems that you guys are having. I'm going to build tutorials for them. Step-by-step guidance tutorial that is for regular people, AKA myself, because I consider myself a regular person here. Yeah, totally hear you on that. We're going to fix that problem. Don't worry. I got you. Mr. Ramon, you're here. Now you're with the at sign. That's your name today. But hello team, passing by because I have oh my goodness, tropical storm in the Caribbean. Sorry to hear, man. Really sorry to hear that. Listen, I have been through many hurricanes. The first hurricane I went through was in 1989. I was like a kid, but I remember that very clearly. That was a Category 5 hurricane. The next one was in 1995. That was Lewis, also Category 5. And then a couple of Category 3s and 2. So stay safe. In the Caribbean, we say batten down. Make sure you lock down your windows and doors. Okay, I'm going to tell this story very fast. There was one time when we experienced a hurricane and we noticed the roof was lifting up. My dad recognized it was because of the pressure coming into the house. We had to go in the bedroom and leave the hallway open. And we opened the front door, we opened the back door to let the air pass through. I'm not making this up. And that literally saved the roof. So it turns out that one of the biggest reasons why the roofs go off in a hurricane is because there's too much air coming into the house. And as a result of this, it literally explodes the roof. Fun fact for you there. I'm not saying to open up your house, but just make sure that there's ways for the wind to pass through. But stay safe. That's the most important thing here. And we'll hopefully see you next week, Ramon. I appreciate you stopping by. Say hi. Okay. All right, guys. What are we doing this week here? So like I said, please sign up. The goal of this group here is you're going to come into the group here. Oh, we got one request already coming in. And the first thing you're going to do is share who you are and what you're working on, right? If you're a developer and you're working on stuff, just say that. If you have ideas for a project and you're trying to think of your project, just say that as well. I really want to get to know you guys better. YouTube is like a one-way dialogue and we needed communication. So join the group. All of you guys that are coming in here, you guys are like my biggest fan, early adopters. So you're 100% free. And like I said, when we get the group to a certain size, we're going to lock it down so that it could pay for my time as well. And I could properly service you guys better by providing an actual service. We might have to hire helpers to organize the content, etc. And so that's where we're gonna spend money. So with that, so you're going to start here, you're going to drop in, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm doing. The weekly sessions, every single thing we do on these weekly calls are going to be posted in this live Vibe Coding weekly chat group. You'll be able to go back and see a full history of stuff. I'm taking this content and I'm distilling it down into actual tutorials for you guys. So you'll be able to see those tutorials in a more succinct manner, along with documents, PDFs and stuff. You literally would just follow what I'm doing and you'll be able to get results. And then the other thing is we have a builder zone. The builder zone is for all of the technical problems, the issues, the challenges, things that you guys are having issues with. You'll be able to get problem feedback on it. If I see a problem and you show me a problem and I will jump in here, answer your question. If I can't answer it, I'm going to do the research and try to get back to you on it. That's my commitment to you. Other people could share their experiences as well. We got a founder zone, which is basically the business side of things. I want people to share their wins, share their losses, share the challenges that you're going through. We're going to make this a real community where you could come from absolutely nothing and build something real proper, real fast. Here's my commitment to you right now. I got 5 people on this live, and this is my commitment to you, that in 90 days, that you will be able to go from like 0 to a SaaS product and to try and get your first customer. That's my commitment to you, okay? My goal is that everybody, your baseline, you should be able to spin up a business and at bare minimum make 120K US per year, period. Because I feel like that's the minimum baseline for you to live comfortably. That's my commitment to you. So every person that joins this group, I'm holding myself accountable to figure out how to get you to that position. From there, sky's the limit. My real goal is to try and get everybody to at least make $1 million. That's my goal, right? But we're going to start small. So your first 10,000 per month is the commitment of this particular group. Okay, what are we going to do today? We got a lot of things to go through and we got to move fast. We're going to cover Auth0. Let me just pull up a in browser. We're going to cover Auth0 today, which is basically security, how to secure your actual application properly with Cloudflare, make some changes there. We're going to try to hit Stripe and set up Stripe. We're going to go through Stripe authentication process. We'll try to set up a page for it. Then we're going to talk about a thing that we need to talk about in order to make all of this work, which is multi-tenancy. I don't know how many people have heard that word, but we'll talk about it in a bit. We'll try to break every single thing down. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. The link is on the side here. It says join the community, dwain.me/school, right? In that purple box there. Feel free to sign up. I'm going to approve you guys as we go along. So with that, let us jump right into things. We got to talk about a couple things to move forward. For the people that are joining for the very first time, let me just make a note of this. So let me just show you what we're building, because I didn't talk about that. Just for the people that are new to the channel. Let's run our front end. Can you run our front end? I don't even write the commands anymore. I just tell it to run the command for me. So we're going to run the front end here. We'll show you what we're building, which is sort of foundation for an application. By the way, I'm using the new OpenAI browser. I did a video about it on my channel. It's really good. There's been a lot of hate on this browser, but I think it's actually pretty cool based on what's going on with it. So what we're building is basically a corporate video platform. Individuals can upload videos in a corporate network, right? And they could organize a video, search a video. It's basically a mini YouTube. That's what we're doing. We're just building a mini YouTube. And I figure this is a better project to build than a to-do app, because 100 people build to-do apps and they're useless as far as I'm concerned. This, when we build it, we can actually sell it to a corporation. Why would somebody buy this from you? You might have a small mid-sized company that is, let's say, 20 or 30 employees or something like that. And they might have a bunch of tutorials that they want to keep private within their own sort of account or something like that. You could set this up for them. Or it might just be that it's just a corporate platform that they just sign up and then use it online as well too. So there's a couple options here, but I figured it's a good use case. Let's say I had somebody reach out to me about building a membership portal for their customers so they could see all of their training videos and that sort of thing. And they want it to be in their own network. So you could actually use this as a platform for that. So there's multiple reasons why you could use this. And today, what we're going to do is put authentication on it, a way for you to sign up and register. And then we're going to put payments so that we could accept payments on it. So those are the two things. There's quite a lot to go through. We'll see how fast we can push on it. That's the mission. That's the goal here. All right, let's jump right into things. With that, we got to talk about one concept that's pretty key to building out something like this, which is about multi-tenancy. And that's a big fancy word, but I'll break it down for you guys. It basically means, how do you manage multiple users? That's the simplest way to describe it. So we got to talk about that a little bit. Hang on, I got some questions here from Roman. Where's one second, there's a chat window here. I feel you got, let me see. He said, I feel you. I got 3 categories. The hurricane being different the past 4 years, Florida. Flooding is a legit problem. Stay safe, really. About the SaaS, I got my project ID looking at page. So let's go with the process. Hey, let's go. We're going to get you up there. Drop your ID in the comments, right? You don't have to share too much details if you don't want to share it. That's totally cool. But I'm hoping that we can build a safe space so everybody can just build together as a group. Actually, the one thing I didn't talk about, let me talk about this very quickly. And I promise we're going to jump into things in a second here. But I just want to talk about this one thing very quickly, which is I've done 3 accelerators in my time as a startup. So I know a thing about the startup space specifically, and I'll tell you why I'm doing this, not because to brag. I just want to highlight a couple things. The very first accelerator that I joined, I knew absolutely nothing about startup. I knew not how to build a company. I didn't know didn't know any single thing. And it was a tough startup. The cohort was 50, okay? By the end of the cohort, it boiled down to 11, okay? It was extremely aggressive. One of the things that they did was every week you had to show up. They would teach you a bunch of stuff. They would give you a bunch of homework, tutorials and stuff to read up and stuff like that. And they would just give you an aggressive amount of work. And when they finish with that task that they give you, you would have to present your ID to a group. The cool thing about this particular cohort was that you would actually pitch to real investors. Think Dragons or Shark Tank. This is the American version. So you'd pitch to real investors. The only difference is the investors weren't giving you money. They were giving you feedback. They would hold up a card with a number on it. And you would get either a 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. You got a 1, you got one more shot. If you had 2 1s in a row, the third low score that you got, you're out the program. You just got kicked out because you haven't learned. That was the program. And so every single week, they would do this rotation of pitches in different groups, etc., and it would just eliminate. I got through the end of the program, if you guys are wondering, and that taught me a lot about being extremely aggressive about your ideas and how to present your ideas and how to structure it in a way so that people can get the value out of it. I have tons of ideas about how to guide people in a very specific process to validate whether your idea is going to work or not. Now, obviously, the market will make the true determination for that, but I've developed a system over time to help with that process. So yeah, 100%. The other thing that I want to mention about that is that I then ended up going into 2 other accelerators, one in Canada, which is a little bit more advanced, and that one was to raise more money. Both times we were supposed to raise money, do the actual event for the thing. It was not rained out, not stormed out. It was iced out because this was north in Canada and it was in New Brunswick. Yes, New Brunswick. And there was so much ice on the ground that when you parked the car and you jumped out, it was literally like you're skating on parking lot ice. It was that thick of ice on the ground. I've never seen that in my entire life. I've never seen ice like that ever again in my life. So we actually never got an opportunity to pitch to the investors because the event got canceled because of the ice storm. And then in a weird way, you know, that feeling where you just feel like the universe is against you, they rescheduled the event a month later. A month later, we showed up and another ice storm hit. It was forecast all week for good weather and they had another ice storm. Can you imagine that? Like in a month's time, like 2 events, the same event getting canceled like that. So as a result, they canceled the whole thing. We never got an opportunity to pitch to investors. That was such a dumb time for me because I was flying out there every 2 weeks, burning money. The other investor we had was in the States, this company called Start Fast. Actually, I'll share that with you guys. You guys are learning a little bit about me every single week. And I think that's important. If you want to see one of my pitches, go to YouTube because it's still up there. I should pull it down and save it actually on my own channel. Go to YouTube and do STRTFAST, Dwain Browne or SnapSuite. Maybe SnapSuite might be it. Let's see. Yeah, 6 years ago. This is me.
It means a lot to me.
This is my
so I'd like to take you on a
pitch on a company.
Want to know more about that? Due to budget,
it was a decent pitch. What made me mess this pitch up, in my opinion, was the fact that I couldn't control my slides. And the guy that was controlling my slides was going in a way that was throwing me off. And I skipped a whole bunch of stuff that I was supposed to say. Anyway, go watch it. And you could cringe a little bit because it wasn't my best moment, but I thought I'd share that with you guys. Okay, let's get down to business. We got lots of stuff to do here. So I want to give you guys that backstory just to say it's like, I know what I'm doing, okay? I know what I'm doing. So when you come into this group and have problems, I almost maybe have been through them. And if I haven't been through them, I'm pretty certain I know somebody that probably went through it. And then more importantly, I can give you the direction to fast track your knowledge to solve the problem. And that's why we're here. You should join the group. And that's why we're showing up here every week so we can accelerate entrepreneurs and business people, make them the best ever. Okay, talked enough about all this craziness. Let's jump into the thing we need to talk about to build this application properly. Okay, let's talk about what happens when you sign up to a platform. There's a couple of things that happen. So we're going to try to simplify it, make sure that the entry-level people understand what's going on. This is my 3-legged person here. So when you sign up for, when you sign up for a application of some sort, any application, okay? What's going on with my pen here? Let's see. Okay. So when you sign up, you're going to fill out the form, okay? That information will go into a database of some sort, okay? Your name, your email address is going to sit inside of a database. You're going to have your username and password, all right? In the olden days, this is what would happen. You would just go to a website, fill out the form, and you would basically put in your information, sign up, and it would just go to a local database, and that would be fine. The problem is this is no longer the way to do this. It's also no longer the preferred or recommended way because it's insecure. If you're controlling this databases, chances are some bad actor of some sort is going to try to hack it at some point. This is just not the recommended way to do things. So we're never going to do this in this particular coding source. You will never see me recommending any single thing that is insecure like this. Okay. And by the way, I just want to put a disclaimer here. I am not a security expert, but I know enough about security. So now that we got that out of the way, do not do that at all costs ever. The next way to do it is to have somebody else store the information for you in the database. Okay, so somebody's storing that information and somebody else is the trusted party that will shield that information for you. In this particular case, it's going to be somebody like Google. Okay, it's going to be Microsoft, SOFT, right? It'll be even Facebook. Don't trust them, but if you want to, sure. Somebody else will store this information. Do not store your own information. All right, so that's number one, okay? We're doing like a little 101 on authentication because it's super important that you have like a mental model on how to deal with this type of stuff. And again, I'm trying to level set for the entry-level people here before we get into the technical stuff. So they're going to control this database for you, right? And essentially what the name of these people that we call them, identity provider, DENTITYPROVIDER, right? So identity providers. And the identity providers are the ones that have the identity of you, the user, okay? So this kind of leaves a problem because you still have a database right? Where you need to keep your users for your application because you need to know who these users are that are logging into your application, okay? So this kind of creates a sort of interesting dynamic that is a lot and very complex. I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible, and I'm going to butcher a bunch of stuff deliberately. So for my security people, if you're ever watching this, it's just so that we could simplify information, okay? So you still have to put your user somewhere, and you still need to know who those users are. And herein lies the problem. The way we solve this, at least in this particular case, is we're going to use an identity provider. We're going to use an authentication provider, somebody that's going to deal with the security for us on our behalf. And this could be any number of people. There's a couple of companies. I'll name a few of them just so that you guys know. So there's Clerk, Clerk. There's Auth0, which is the one that we're going to be using today, AUTH0. Literally. There's a parent company to Auth0 because they just bought each other, Okta. There's even Microsoft is in here with, well, they used to call it Active Directory, but now it's called Microsoft Entra, ENTRA. Okay. So you got tons of identity providers, security authentication providers that basically deals with all this authentication stuff. The short reasoning why you want to use these guys is because they have teams of people dealing with security. The last stats I read or heard they present, Microsoft, I think it was 2003, they said they had in the year of 2003, they had something like 3 billion security attacks on their platform, Azure or something like that. Don't quote me on the exact number, but just to give you an idea of how serious this stuff is. Fast forward 1 year later, in 2024, they said that number jumped from 3 billion to 60 billion. That's an insane amount of hacking attempts and security problems. It's crazy. I just want to stress this. Do not try to roll security on your own. No matter what somebody tells you, it's easy. You will be forever in the business of having people hack your account and just be having to deal with all that craziness. You just want to get out of that business as soon as possible. Pay the money or use a service that has a free tier and let them deal with security so that you could just run your app. If there's any single thing that I could get you guys to remember is that one principle. Do not roll your own security. I can't stress this enough. I'm in my early 20s and your efforts in helping me a lot in getting guidance. Thank you so much. You're welcome. More than happy to help in any way. Please search Google for what was he page. You'll see my props vibe coded website. Please review it. Drop it inside of the group and we're going to look at it and talk about it. So sign up in the group. Drop it inside of there. I'm going to review it and then I'll publicly respond in the group and give you my review because that's what the group is for. We're going to start doing this type of stuff so we could all share knowledge or whatever. So yeah, 100% and welcome, man. I presume you've subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to the channel and also YouTube thingy, the thumbs up button, so that YouTube could spread this over to more people so we could spread the word about this wonderful channel. I'm only seeing 1 thumbs up. We got 5 people watching, so please thumbs up the chat. Yes. Sorry, just got to do the YouTube thing because it's important. Yeah, okay. So now that we got that, do not roll your own security. Great. Now we have to figure out, okay, if that's the case and we're not going to roll our own security, how do we deal with this security problem? How do I give somebody else security, but then I need to be able to access the information in my app? So it just becomes a crazy thing. This is a high level. Again, we're doing high level concepts here. The authentication provider, when the user signs up, when they put in their name and email address, you're going to send that information over to the authentication provider. You're going to say, hey, somebody is signing up on my website. Can you just take care of it? That's the gist of what you're going to do. And they're going to say, yeah, sure, no problem. We're going to take that. We're going to store that user in our secure private database. Okay. And then what we're going to do is, in this particular case, I'm going to simplify it and then I'll talk about the identity provider for a second here. We're going to basically give you some sort of ID of some sort for that user. All right. And you can then take that ID and store that ID in your database. So your database has no reference to any actual user information. You might keep the email address also, you might keep the name, just to be clear. But for the most part, it doesn't have any access to any sensitive information like password or any single thing that's more advanced, right? And that ID that you're keeping inside the database is just so that you can reference back to the ID of the identity provider. It gets a little bit more tricky when you decide that you're going to use an identity provider like Google or Microsoft. So In that particular case, when you actually use authentication like Auth0 to sign up, it's possible that email address, they might be saying, you know what, I want to use Google, right? You go to a website to sign up and they say, sign up with Google. Essentially, that person logs in with Google. Let's just use Google as this particular example. And then, now I'm going to be butchering this a little bit, but basically once you get logged in, the user gets permission to say, okay, yes, you're a good authenticated user because Google has validated that. And then that information basically goes into your identity provider, right? And then they saves it locally in their system. And then you still collect that ID and whatever it is to keep it in your database. Hopefully everybody got that. If you don't understand that concept, just let me know. Put a 0 in the chat if you don't. If you understand that concept, put a 1. I just want to make sure you have a baseline concept. I'm really butchering security here deliberately, but I just want to make sure you understand some high-level principles. We got a delay, so I'm going to wait for those responses, and we're going to move forward. Let's finish up the first question here. So put a 1. So 1, understand. 0, don't understand. Okay. So I see 1 from Simon. Fantastic. That's great. Welcome, by the way. I'm seeing you for the first time, so that's great. That's good. So that's good. Okay, so we got a little bit of concept. When we use that, okay, I've explained it. Now that we get that, there's a couple things that we're going to do. We're going to go into Auth0 and we're going to sign up for an account because we're using Auth0 in this case. It could be any provider. Cloudflare also has their own. You just need to pick one and go with it. Now, the reason why I use Auth0, I've been using Auth0 for years and then they're pretty good. I might move to another company called WorkOS. They have some enterprise level features that I need. If you're starting out, my recommendation, if you're not using Next.js, is to use Auth0, especially if you're using Nuxt and Nuxt, which is what we're doing around here. Auth0. They have some pretty good get started type of stuff, and it's not as complicated. It's not the best UI, but it's not the worst either. But they do have a generous free tier, which is that will give you at least up to 25,000 monthly active users before you get into larger scale. You can get pretty far with it, and that's the reason why I'm recommending it as a starter. Okay, I can back it because I've used it for years. That brings us to one more slightly complex concept that we need to add. When you have your application, we have to talk about this thing called JWT. And I swear in my life, for the longest while, whenever I didn't for sure WorkOS, I think is really good. We got people that actually knows this stuff. That's good to know. I really like their stuff. It's pretty solid. The enterprise level platform that they have is just, they've really talked through security. I watched a couple of talks with that guy and he understands what he's doing. So let's talk about JWT for a second quickly. This is for entry level people that don't understand this stuff. All right. So here's the problem. You got an application. Now your application needs to list some data, a table of some sort. But you have a problem. Number one is you don't know who the user is. And number two is you don't know what information they need to get access to in their database. And that's what this JWT thing solves, right? It's a roundabout way. You log in, the user logs in. What really happens, you're not dealing with security. Your goal is to get to this information, to this table here. But before you get there, you need to know who this person is, WHO. Right? Because you don't know who this person is. So before that, you need to have some kind of shield. That shield in this particular case is Auth0, right? That's going to ask them for the username and credentials. When that happens, they're going to take that username and password and send it over to their internal system. They might actually even do a back channel to Google or whatever it is. At the end of the day, they're going to validate whether you're good or not. Normally what they do is they send you a code. I think it's important. They're going to send you a code. Let's say that code is 1, 2, 3. And then your application will use that code to go get a token. And that token is, we call it JWT, JSON Web Token. And that token contains the ID of the user. It might contain the email address. Okay, it might contain a few other information inside of here, depending on what information you decide to store in that database. Okay, but at the end of the day, the two things that you really care about is the ID and the email address. And that's going to send it to your application. Now, even though you got that information, you still have to do something with it. So your application says, I need to list this table of records. Your application will call Cloudflare Workers API. Cloudflare Workers API does not know who's logged in. It has no knowledge of that information. So you always have to pass that JWT to Cloudflare Worker. When you do that, your Cloudflare Worker will say, I got a JWT, now what do I do with it? And it will do back end, we'll call it a back channel communication with your database. It's going to go check that JWT against this application and they say, hey, does this JWT have permission to do what it said it wants to do, assuming that it's correct and the session didn't expire, it's going to come back and say, yeah, you're good to go. Then your worker will be like, okay, no problem. We can go to the database, get the information, return it back, and then push it back to the user. That's what's happening every time for all requests, right? JWT sometimes gets stored in a secure cookie. I have to stress that. Secure cookie. Do not store it in any single thing else but a secure cookie. And I'm repeating that multiple times because there's other ways to store it and they're insecure. So I just want to make sure that you guys remember that point. So that's it in a nutshell. That's basically what we're going to be doing. We're going to do the setup for this here. Hopefully you guys got the concept. I see some people that know this stuff, so that's great. I'm not going to belabor it too much more than that, but I just want to make sure that we're level set in. And at least we have some foundation. That's all you have to do. The good news is you don't have to worry about any of this, because once you set it up and once you put all the codes and stuff like that in care, the libraries are going to do all this back and forth. But it's really important at a high level when you're trying to do it, you understand why you have to do all this dance between the different services, right? It's just good to understand this stuff here. For example, if you're using Auth0, I'll add one more layer to this because I think it's important. So let's just say that you're using Auth0 as a security layer. If you are allowing Google and Microsoft to log in on behalf of your application, you also have to register them in Google. Register. Okay, so you have to register those applications in Google, and so they're going to tell you, hey, you're going to register the application. They're going to give you a client ID, or in the Microsoft world, it's called either application ID or an object ID. They keep changing the name, or tenant ID, right? So they're going to give you one of those, and then they're going to give you like a key, and then that's going to be stored somewhere. So this is just so you know, whenever you see those type of stuff, that's what's happening. All you're doing is taking that information and registering it in Auth0, so Auth0 knows who to authenticate against. Enough theory, let's jump into some practical here. I have Vibe Coding 101 account here, and what we need to do is create an Auth0 login application. Like I said, we're building a video platform. Video platform needs authentication, so we're just going to go create application. In this particular case, it's going to be your Vue.js application, so Angular, Vue.js, React, so a single page application. We're going to call it Vibe Coding. Let's call it Vibe Coding 101. Let's say video platform. Every single thing I put, let's do it that way. Yeah, there we go. So that's what we're going to call it. So at least we know which application is for which. And when I create that, okay, all I've done is basically tell Auth0 that I want to create this information here is going to be important because this is how I connect against this database for this particular application. And then it's going to give me some sample codes, which we won't necessarily have to do because we're going to vibe code this, right? But it's going to give me the client ID and a secret. That secret is super important because that's how my application will know how to connect into Auth0 and where to store the information in Auth0's database, okay? Hopefully we're getting that. Great. So let's move forward a little bit more here. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell our vibe coded application. We're going to go into this guy here. And what we're going to do is program a front end. Oops, computer, stop. Why is there a... Oh, I had an alarm for the wrong time. Okay, so let's do this. So let's create a new, keep and continue. Let's see how to do this properly. We're going to implement authentication on this application, set up Auth0 and put a login page so that whenever a user hits this page, it's going to have to redirect them to Auth0 in order to get authenticated. Set every single type of environment variables so that we could set it up in Cloudflare. So let's do that. Okay. And then the client, let me just put client ID and then we'll deal with the secret in a sec. Any questions on this so far? We're deep in the weeds here, like I said, because more advanced, but if you guys are still trying to figure out where we're at, you'll have to go back and watch some of the previous videos, all right? So I see 3 thumbs up. I got 4 people inside of here. Oh, maybe I'm the 4th one. So good, great. So we're gonna do authentication here. What it's gonna do is it'll put it as a plugin in our front-end application. We're gonna have a plugin here. It's gonna take the domain name. So that domain is, I'll show you where that's coming from. That domain is this one here. We need the domain and we need the client ID. We don't need the secret in this particular case. And the reason why we don't need the secret is because it's actually insecure to have that secret stored in our JavaScript application on the front end. That's really important to understand. So what's happening is we're going to basically pass the domain and the ID. We're going to tell Auth0 to do an implicit flow, which is a little bit too complicated for this conversation, but it's just a kind of way of doing security. I'm going to display with that because the right thing to do, we're going to do it this way for today. And then later on, when we do more in the classroom, I'm going to do a little more deep dive on this topic because I think it's important for everybody to understand it. Security is one of those things where you can't compromise, okay? So we're going to do it right, and we're going to do it right the first way, even if it means that we have to, one, is we're just going to give you step-by-step instructions on what to do. So that's number one. That'll make it easier for everybody. So I'm going to give you that guidance in the group, in the school, but also I want to make sure that we get this right, because if you get it wrong, bad things happen. Bad things happen. There was a tweet where a guy coded a whole application. He was excited. He made money from it too. Then all of a sudden, he was like, guys, I'm getting attacked. Like, people are hacking me. People are doing weird stuff on my application. And it was just crap storm from there. So yeah, you really want to get security right. And let's be clear, nobody ever gets it perfect. Not even Microsoft or Google, because it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. And I guarantee you, with AI and all the craziness that's happening, people are going to be scanning more and more applications today. So you want to follow best practices, and I will never teach you otherwise, period. If I learn something new about security, I will bring it to the group. That's my commitment today. Where are we? We got our vibe coded app. Auth0, right? Yeah, so we got to get that. So Auth0 domain public. So we got to do the EMV thing. So it has the client ID, and this is the one that we need to add. I need to stop that sound. It's so annoying. Visual Studio keeps doing this thing. Okay, so we have our Auth0 domain. We have our client ID. We have this. So we're going to do this locally, and then we're going to remove this stuff. So the Auth0 redirect basically means, hang on, let me do this. Make this full screen so I can swipe left and right. Yeah. So what we're going to do, we're going to test it locally. Once you get this working locally, you need to remove these host name, else other people can essentially connect to this thing. So we're going to put allowed URL, allowed callback URL is localhost, just so we can get the dance correct. And allowed logout, we'll put this as this, and allowed origin. We're going to make some improvements to that, but just to get us up and running for now. And then I'm going to save that. All right. Click and save. Okay, authentication. Okay, and then we're going to run it and see how far we get. And then we got to do some more stuff. What should happen is whenever we try to log in here, it should automatically kick us over to Auth0. That's what we're hoping for. Once we know that's working, then we're going to do the other parts all together. So deep in the weeds today. Now, while I'm waiting on this to go through, we got Simon Brazier. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Where are you from? Just city or country or wherever. I'm curious. Where are you from? We got Unknown inside of here. Where are you from as well? Just curious. I know where the other guys are from. So it's always good to get a sense of where people are. All right, check-in required. Okay, so once this is set up, we're going to jump to the next level, which is we're 1 hour in. So we got to push a little bit. We need to deal with multi-tenancy, which is our next topic. We're going to push on to that in a second here. I just want to wait until this part is done so at least we know what's going on. Perfect. All right. So now that we have that, let's run it and see what's going on. Okay, so can you run it and let me know so I could test it? Thanks. Okay, so dev localhost keep, and let's run it. And then we got to set up the Auth0 URL. We'll talk about that in a sec. So let's just run it and get it going. Oh, nobody's responding. All right, nobody is responding. Did you guys leave me? Number 1 and number 2, number 3. So enter, not now, and we're going to go to open that up, localhost. All right, so let's do this. So we're going to go to localhost 3000. Oh, we got a callback problem. Okay, we got to fix this first. One of the things that I recently started doing is I started using ChatGPT directly in VS Code. And I got to say, I'm pretty impressed with it. One of the problems that I have with VS Code is it keeps asking for permission to do stuff over and over again. And no matter how much I tell it to allow, it just keeps asking for doing that. Now, OpenAI, ChatGPT does do that, but I find that it's asking less. And I was able to do significantly longer tasks running with ChatGPT and GPT-5. I did it on high yesterday because I wanted to make a whole bunch of changes on a larger code base. And by larger, I'd say that code is probably pushing maybe around 350,000 lines of code now. It's a fairly decent sized application, not super large, but big enough that it required a little bit more attention. This is for a mono repo that I built. I talked about that last week, but I'll mention it again. So basically we have a mono repo for our front end and back end application. We only have one application in each right now, but the mono repo allows us to jump between the different projects and keep the context, which is super important for the AI. So keep that in mind, but highly recommend that you actually check out ChatGPT Copilot directly. And the $20 a month plan gives you significant amount of usage. So if you actually meet your maximum limit with GitHub Copilot, which I've only done once or twice, you could switch over to GitHub Copilot. Sorry, not Git Copilot, but OpenAI ChatGPT, and it'll go pretty fast. All right, let's see what we got here. We're trying to get this authentication. For anybody that's new or just joined in, I see one person just popped in. If you are, we're basically building a video application, video platform for a corporate client, and we're vibe coding the way out of it. We're working on security right now, and we're going to be doing Stripe in a minute. We got our Stripe set up to go as soon as possible. The next topic that we're going to be talking about is multi-tenancy, which is about how do you build an application to support multiple different users. JPI is free with, oh, is it? I didn't know that. Gemini Pro API key is free with use in Kilo. How do you like Kilo? Is it good? What's your stack right now? Are you using VS Code as well too, or are you a CLI person or Claude? Or you said Gemini, but I'm just curious. Is that Kilo is your default editor now? Curious about that. So we got, okay, let's see if we can get this going as fast as possible. Perfect. I can see the file lines, but the content shows that the orphan JavaScript code line thing. Yeah, you know what? I haven't actually tried Kilo that much. Maybe I'm getting old. I have Copilot 2 and Gemini Pro account. Okay, that's good to know. And you find Gemini Pro is holding up pretty well? So here's what happened. In the early days, I was trying everything. I was trying all different types of stuff. And then what happened was you get like one or two good hits where, okay, this is really working, like it's solid on certain things. And then you narrow down your focus. The next thing you know, you get a lane. And honestly, because I was doing code for so many different clients, I needed to standardize on the tools to keep the consistency. And so I just really zoned in on Claude because Claude was just consistent. I tried 3.5, it was okay. 3.7, I was like, whoa, this is really good. When it jumped to 4, I was like, this is amazing. 4 to 4.5, honestly, I haven't really noticed that big of a change. I'm just using it because it's the latest. As a result of that, I used Gemini in the early days, not Gemini Pro, but the early ones before, and it just didn't hold up. Sadly, I'm skewed with it because I just feel like I just don't want to waste the time to go back. But I have heard significantly good things about Gemini. So really interesting to know that you guys are really good. I've built everything with Gemini Pro, React, TypeScript, Python. Interesting. That's good to know. We can use multiple Google accounts. Each gets 100 requests per day. 100 is pretty good, but I think I actually do more than 100. Honestly, I think I do with multiple accounts. You get fair enough. That's good to know. I will check it out again. I'm going to try to do a head-to-head comparison because I really want to know. I'll tell you this. My tests barrier is getting higher now. And I think for everybody, right? As we learn more and more how these things are working, we're expecting more from the tools. I promise you guys, I will do this. I'm going to do a proper head-to-head across the different platforms, across, like I said, I think we're more than 350,000 lines of code on my actual software. So I'm going to test it against that. I'm going to do a separate branch and I'm going to do a test against it. Then I'm going to see head to head because the nuance now is in the real details, right? I think for the most part, all of these models can get you a solid application. The question is, can it do 10 tasks at a time without tripping on itself? And so I'll come back to you guys with that. But that's good to know. Happy to hear you guys are getting some success with that. I want to learn more about that Claude, which is better. So I wanted to go with GPT or Claude, but don't know which is better alternative with code. I use both software. So I want to go with GPT. Let me make sure I got that. I want to go with GPT or Claude. So I would say, hands down, my daily driver is Claude. It's the most stable that I've experienced so far. I can't say much about Gemini Pro, which you guys are telling me is pretty good as well. But I've been very consistent with Claude. That being said, any single time I get to a really hard problem where Claude just keeps spinning and not getting anywhere, I always switch over to GPT-5. And GPT-5, for some reason, just always gets me that unlock. It just gets me just a little edge to unlock it. However, once I get that problem solved, I switch back over to Claude. The primary reason I've been doing that is because I find that Claude ability to keep the tool calling much longer consistently. That being said, though, I think that is just because of Visual Studio VS Code. Because I find that when I used it yesterday, as I said, in the actual GPT-5, it was surprised me because it ran for a really long time. It was a pretty big, like I said, 350,000 lines of code. I had it change the entire system from Bun to PM library, and then document every single thing and upgrade the entire thing and set up a new build system for all of them. And it actually went through, and I think I prompted 2 or 3 times to continue, and it was fine. I was pretty impressed with that. And I noticed that if I did that in GPT-5 in VS Code, I think Microsoft is throttling it somehow because you're not getting the same amount of ongoing churning, if that makes sense. So Gemini, good for art. Yes, Gemini is certainly good for art. Can you increase the font size? Oh, yeah, hang on. Sorry. My bad. Yes, 100%. I was supposed to do that as soon as I jump in here. Thanks for reminding me about that. We'll see if that's good. If not, I could bring it up a little bit more. I apologize. Okay, so I think we got authentication going here. Let's run this guy, see what's going on. Bam, there we go. As soon as I log there, oops, I'm 90% certain that this is just Chrome and its craziness. If I do this and I go here, oh, maybe not. So I think we got one more issue. But that's weird though, because /login. Okay, got you. So we might have a problem there, but let's just fix that right away. When I go to the home page, it seems to be giving me this error. However, if I do /login, it's showing me the login page. And the other thing that I've been doing is I've been using GitHub MCP server. So while this is running, I'll show you guys what I've been doing. The actual software is almost 1 million lines of code. That's pretty big. I don't have a winner yet to match it. My team uses Visual Studio 2022. Got you. Yes. Okay, this is interesting. Let me make sure I get you right. So you're saying my actual software is almost 100 million lines of code, and I don't have a winner to match it yet. VS Code has instructions per path, but my team uses Visual Studio, right? I presume, yeah, Visual Studio. So I presume you're using them interchangeably, right? Like you're using VS Code and Visual Studio at the same time. Is that right? The challenge I was running into earlier when I was using Visual Studio 2022 is that the Copilot was not good. It was garbage. You mentioned last week that you are using 2026, which is significantly, like night and day difference. It's unbelievable how good 2026 is. It's very stable. In fact, it's so stable now that I'm literally getting it to write code and pushing it to production. I'm that bullish about it. It's crazy. Now, obviously, I'm doing a little bit of review. But I saw this and I cringe a little bit. That's cool. You learn that. C# is an underrated language. Blazor, I have some opinions about it, but we're going to leave that for another day. I use both VS Code and Visual. Got you. The context is hard. So have you broken up the documentation already? Have you done that work to get it to read the code, understand the code, and then break up the documentation into small docs? That's where the context problem, at least for me so far, has been solved. No, I'm not dealing with 1 million lines of code, so I can't really say too much with that. Like I said, I think I'm at 350 or whatever. Probably across all of our code base, we're at 1 million, but definitely for this project that I'm working on, it's definitely not that big for sure. I'm curious though, because let me show you what I mean. Like I said, I like the fact that you guys have done a bunch of stuff in this space before. And I'm talking to real developers. I remember that part of my code is still SF. I remember that. Don't worry, I got you. I know that your code is .NET 4.8. I remember that very clearly. Tell me if you've done this or you think, because this is what I did to solve some of my legacy code problem. I might have mentioned this before. I'm going to do it again so that at least you think. So here, nope. Let's do this first and then let's do this. So here I got a mono repo because I did this a couple of weeks back now. And what I did on the mono repo is I have apps and API and functions. And this guy here, where are you? Here. This is all .NET. Okay, notice that the naming convention is different. And this solution here, all .NET code. So the problem that I kept running into was not enough context to things. So the first thing I did was I came into this project and I created a GitHub Copilot instructions file specifically for this project. And then I got it to just create a documentation folder for this particular project. Now, I'm not even seeing it inside of here. You know what? I might have done it for the other one and not this one here. I might have done it for the other project altogether. Let me just double check here. So I created a docs I just went through piece by piece. I just got it to create a docs for every one of the parts that I cared about for every single thing. Okay, like extensive documentation for every piece of the application, like documented almost like to the library page by page level. Okay, create individual files. And then I got all of those docs to be referenced inside of the Git Copilot instructions file. And I found that once I did the work to do that, to get that sort of granular sort of documentation, significantly better because they see here, so it knows, because now it knows the structure and it knows the document and whatever. And I highlighted a bunch of the stuff that it cares about, and it has lots of sample, right? Like this, there's a pretty big file of context here, and all the reference to all of the different sort of MD files, documentation file. This made just an enormous jump in terms of productivity. And now, honestly, I'm so confident that any single time we get a bug, here's what I'm doing. So anytime we get a bug in production with the application, what I'm doing is we're going to, let's go here. So we get a bug. I'll drop the bug inside of it. I'll get it to run the tests and all this kind of stuff. And then I use the GitHub MCP server to get it to check the tests, to get the error messages, and then take those error messages and put it back in, feed it back into the GPT model to run an error message. And this thing here, like I said, I did this check on Codex, and it was impressive because Codex actually uses the GitHub Copilot instructions file. I think they're aware of it, so they use it as well. Really solid. And that workflow, honestly, sometimes it'll stop and I'll just say, hey, I still see a build error. Can you continue? So as long as you have really extensive tests and you make a change and those tests are breaking and you use the MCP server to feed it back from GitHub. I don't know if you're using GitHub or maybe you're using Azure DevOps. If you are, then it might be a thing. But if you're in GitHub, then yeah, the MCP server. I don't know if there's a MCP server for Azure DevOps yet. But listen, love the questions. Hopefully the font is big enough. You did mention that, so that's good. I like Vue.js better, but I thought listen, Nuxt and Vue.js all day long. You'll hear me preaching that night, like 24/7. Okay, it's not even a day. And I've done Blazor development. So yeah. Okay, what do we got here? Let's see if we got this thing going. Come on, man. It's like trivial errors here. Let's move on. Good conversation, though. I'm happy you guys are engaging and keeping me honest. We build together here. Okay, so who has never done authentication? If you haven't done authentication, put a 1 in the chat. I'm just curious. I know, Ramon, you've done authentication, probably using identity server or something like that. If you've never done not Auth0 specifically, but OAuth, right? Like the Auth0, or no, I'm saying Auth0, but what I really mean is OpenID, OpenAuth, JWT authentication. I'm just curious. I've been on client side, never worked with server side before. Got you. Okay, interesting. Sorry, I got this one first. So being on client side, never worked with client side. Yeah, okay, good. That's good to know. Okay, so at least you got some understanding there, hopefully. The backend part is really important, and we're going to work through that detail. If you got any more specific questions, let me know. We're going to get that going. And love it. Did that with the demo vibe coding question. The context doesn't get too lost with that almost. So here's the thing. If you use Claude, I can only speak for Claude specifically. If you use Claude, because of how you're structuring the instructions, where it's let me make sure I get this right. So because you're structuring where GitHub Copilot instructions, the main file has just reference to all the context. Claude, I find, is extremely good at just figuring out what your problem is, going to the GitHub Copilot file, reading and finding the right kind of document, and then only bringing in that 1 or 2 specific documents that it needs. I find that it's extremely good at that, and I think that's the winning formula with Claude right now. I can't really speak for the other models because After I figured out that Claude is doing that really well, that's how come I stuck to Claude altogether. I can't say for Gemini, I can't say for Copilot. I'm noticing that GPT-5 is now starting to do that a little bit better. It's getting caught up. But the tool, in my opinion, is still a little weak on the GPT-5 side of things. So I end up reverting back to Claude. But I feel that Claude is getting extremely good at managing its own context really well now. I think that's a win. But still using external ID. You mean like OpenID Connect? Yes, that's right. Yes, that's what I meant. Identity provider. But not using an internal provider. So that's what, I mean, in the .NET world, I know exactly what you're talking about. In the .NET world, this thing was popular for a while. Identity. It's no longer being maintained. Identity Server 4. This was pretty popular for a while, these guys, and then they renamed it. I think they still have this. I've used this quite a bit for a while, and now they changed their name. And the old one is deprecated. And now it's more of an enterprise thing. See here, Identity Server wiped from GitHub and by the Dune team, right? They wanted to make it into a commercial product, and that's basically what they did. Now I don't even think twice. Like, I'm using either, I've tested WorkOS, I haven't used it in production. Clerk is, if you're in the React world, that seems to be popular. Also, what's the other one that I'm thinking about? Oh, I can't not mention this one because it's blowing up. That being said, BetterAuth is not really a full identity provider system. What it is, it just gives you the framework so that you could manage authentication within your environment. And I don't know how I feel about this personally, because while it's good that you have control, it means that you're basically dealing with security. That's a no-no for me. Okay, so I hit this. Did it remove the... Let me see, hang on. I fixed so required dynamic works browser environment wrap initialization on mount. This ensures it only runs client side. The flow is now during server side. Okay, you know what? I got it. Okay, so you know what? We're going to disable server side rendering. I don't want to have any single thing with server side rendering. We only want to deal with client side rendering. I understand what's happening. So what's happening here is, as you know, with Nuxt, you could do both server side and client side rendering. In order to get things, I tend to let it focus on just client-side rendering altogether. Yeah, they went commercial, so that's why. You know what? Listen, the security game is not a business you want to get into today. Just to give you an idea, if you're in Auth0, because you guys, most of you haven't necessarily looked at this platform too much, you could create you got your organization. If you create an organization, whenever a user signs up, they show up here right away. We'll see that in a bit. And here you have branding. So you can brand your login page, set up your custom URL, put your logo inside of there. And so just as an example, live example here, if I do leads at snapsuite.io, I'm logged in already. Let me log out. Bam, I'm over in Auth0, right? Log in, and that's it. And then it just sends me a token. We're back into that world. Simplifies a lot of stuff. More importantly, it has triggers. After they do authentication, you could tell it to make an API call to your backend to deal with stuff for sending notifications, messages, whatever you need to do. It has a pretty good, solid implementation. And this is all for the price of free, right? Auth0 pricing, right? And just be clear, I'm not affiliated with these guys in any way, right? 5 organizations. Right, single sign-on for all your customers using Auth0 branded forms, attack vector, credit card verification required for custom domains. Right, that's it for free. Right, up to 25,000 users. You can't beat that. I guess that's pretty solid. Now, if you do this here, it goes up in price, essential B2B. But if you're on the B2C tier, you can get away with building a pretty beefed up application with this, and it does a pretty good job of login and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Vibe coded application. What's going on? Let's see. So if I do this, yes. Okay, fantastic. So as soon as I do this, now it's pushing me to the login page. Now, if I click on this, login, sends me over to Auth0. Okay. And I'm doing the Vibe coding app here. So I don't have an account, so I'm going to create one right now. We're going to say Dwain in at gmail.com. This is my public YouTube email address. We're going to create a password so that you guys can see my password. Then we're going to log in. Okay, bam. So it came back. I should add that password, shouldn't I? Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so it did that. Now, oh wow, look at that. Dwain logged in. Okay, and then let's go to Auth0 and see that user inside of our database. Authentication, user management, users. So there, we got a user registered already. And what else do we need inside of here? So from here, I'm almost certain that sent an email also. Let me just double check. Pull up that email account. Yes, there we go. Verify your account. I got an email. Now it's coming from Auth0, so you have to do custom domain and that sort of deal, but you guys understand, you get the idea. So now if I click on that, verified, done. Okay. So we got to log in more or less, and we can move forward. We're 30 minutes in. Now, obviously, again, like I said, there's more work to be done here, but I want to be clear with that, just the flow in terms of how to get things up and running in a relatively secure way that you can build on security. So with that, there's a couple things that we need to talk about. Okay, there's two very specific things that we need to think. We have to answer the question of, if somebody's logging into your application, how do we know the user that is currently logged in? But more importantly, how do we have one application connected to multiple companies, and under each company you could have multiple users? We don't want a situation where user 1 works for company A and user 2 works for company B, and then user 1 logs in and sees company B information. That's what we don't want. The thing we need to address here is what we call multi-tenancy. Fancy word for saying we need to restrict the data according to the tenant. So there's one important concept that we need to get here, and I'm going to speed through it very fast. Bear with me. Whenever you have the user and that user registers, what you're going to do is give that user a tenant ID, T-E-N-N-A-N-T-I-D. A tenant ID is a fancy word for company ID, right? So we got our company ID or tenant ID, and then we have Auth0. We can create a tenant ID and a user ID. I like to create my own user ID and my own tenant ID, because if I decide to migrate or move from Auth0, I still have control over the ID system of my client. I'm not dependent on Auth0 platform if I decide to move from them at another point. So with that, we want to create this tenant ID, create this user ID, and there's a couple ways that we could do it. We want to store that locally in our system, okay? But we also want to make sure that it's stored in Auth0 with the USER. So when we have the user, we're going to store profile details with that user. And so that whenever after the user logs in, the Auth0 will always send back to the application that information. And this way we could use that information to go look up the record in our system. So what that translates to is every single data in our database must have a user. If I go to Cloudflare and I go to our database and I click on Explore, in order for us to segregate the data, for every single record in the database, we must have a tenant ID, because the tenant ID is associated with the company, which allows us to segregate the data based on who's logged in. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So that's the thing that we're going to try to get done. The question now is, where do you store that information? So I'll show you that right now. That tenant information is stored in the user metadata and the application metadata. There's two different places that you could put that details in, okay? So why do we want to do this? Because every time the user logs in, they got to send that information back to us. So we have to update the metadata for that particular user. So we have that information properly stored, and we're going to store it in the, oops, did I close it off? No, it's right here. We're going to store that information for the user in the user metadata section. The application metadata section is more like the permissions and the roles, and this one here is more like the preference. But after you log in, when the user returns, the user information is sent back the application metadata, you think you have to do some work to get it. All right, so we're going to put it in the user metadata section. We want to go back into user metadata. How are we going to do this? We got a couple ways to do this. Let me just think about what is the right way to do it. So we're going to save this information inside of here. We have a couple ways to do it. On the callback, we can't, there's one more thing that we have to do. When we get the user register, we need some sort of background job that's going to inject this information in here. Let me explain what I mean by that. User hits the website, login page, signs up, Auth0. Okay. Auth0 says we're going to store the information inside the user database. Great. Now, after that login happens, we have an ID for that user. We have to now make a call back to our system, pass that ID. So we're going to call a worker. That worker will be responsible for login in our system, right? And it will also be responsible for updating the user with the correct tenant ID and user ID. Okay, there's another way to do this. If we were using our own sign-up form, let's say we wanted to have more control over the sign-up process because we wanted to ask questions or do a wizard or something like that, then we would take the user information, like their email address, all that type of stuff. The first thing we would do is call our worker. Our worker would register the user in our system with the tenant, the username and the tenant, right? And then we would back-end call Auth0, right? And register the user in Auth0 system, and then basically go back here and then maybe return to the user and then have Auth0 send out that email to do the verification. Okay, so there's two ways to do it. I'm doing it the simpler way right now. They're both fine. We're letting Auth0 handle the registration because we just want it to be simple, super fast. And then we're going to let Auth0 send us a webhook to the back end. We're going to basically take that information. Then we're going to be responsible for updating our user ID and tenant. Hopefully that makes sense. There's a bit of a dance that's going on here. And I'm probably losing people because we're in the weeds with this technical stuff, but it's important that you get at least an overall concept. All right, let's do that. If you guys got any questions, let me know. We're going to move forward. I'm going to switch over to the backend part of the application. And we're going to set that up because we're going to go do that. Keep here. Let's close these guys. Let's go to our backend service. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up authentication. We've implemented authentication on the front end of our application. We want to have a webhook that's going to handle newly registered users, which will then save into our database with a generated user ID and a generated tenant ID. Then we need to update Auth0 with the tenant ID and the user ID. We're going to put that information in the user data metadata. So that's basically what we're doing. It's a bit of a dance that we're doing here. We're in the weeds here, but I want to make sure we're doing this right. So we're going to do that. We need to update our schema so that every table has a tenant ID associated with it so that whenever the user logs in, we're able to associate that user with the correct tenant. We'll need a profile database that will keep some basic information about the tenant. Okay, so this is gonna cook. Let's see if we got any other questions. So we got two people on the thing. So it's me and somebody else. So we've lost a lot of people. I'm probably way too much in the weeds here, talking way too much development stuff. Nonetheless, we're gonna push through. We're gonna get this done, and we're gonna keep moving. Hopefully you're not getting stormed out, and hopefully you guys haven't fallen asleep while that's happening. What I want to do is I want to see if anybody has joined the school community. Okay, we got one member, pending, Mr. Ramon, .NET developer, learning how to implement and monetize my first project, hybrid deployment. Listen, man, I appreciate you. I saw your comment on my video. I responded to it. I gotta say, man, I appreciate the enthusiasm in every single way possible, because one of the hardest things to do is show up here and talk blindly into a camera for 3 hours. 100%. I appreciate that 100%. The good news is that these calls are being recorded and I don't take it personal. I'll tell you guys a story while all this stuff is being built. So I watched a recent video with Mark Zuckerberg, okay? And he was at a thing. Now, love or hate the guy, that's neither here nor there for me. But here's what I'll say about this. He was at a Harvard or Stanford presentation when Facebook had 50 employees, 50. So 50 employees, as you could imagine, that's a really long time ago. That was in 2004. And he was doing a presentation in lecture hall, and in the audience, there were 12 people. He just shared what he was doing and some of the challenges they were having. Back then, they were having scaling issues. They'd already surpassed like 100,000 users or 400,000 users. They were having some problems with their system and they need to scale it. But 12 people, imagine that, 12 people showed up in that room to listen to that guy talk, okay? And I couldn't help but think to myself, that's crazy. Because I'm sure in that school at the time, right, they publicize, hey, this guy is going to be coming and they're going to have a talk or whatever, and it'd be good for you to listen. But what I find interesting is the fact that people are like, yeah, no, nobody wants to listen to this guy, whoever this guy was. And fast forward, if there was only a way for those people that saw that sign to know that Facebook was going to become a multi-billion-dollar company, I guarantee you that auditorium would have been full. It would have been full, no question about it. But it wasn't. It was only 12 people that showed up to listen to that guy, and they got a chance, which I would consider a rare moment in history, to be able to talk to somebody that's going to blow up to that level. So I only say that to say, not that I'm going to be a Facebook thing, but we're going to get there someday. Don't worry. Trust me, my ambitions, they're sitting on Mars. The reason why I say that is because fast forward 20 years later, that same video on YouTube has 2.5 million views. It's insane. Because people wanted to go back and look at him in the way that he was thinking about stuff in the early days. So listen, there's some things that you can't change. And what I found out about life is that people only follow people that are successful because they're the ones that made it. But by that time, it's too late for you to get like the real value out of those people, right? And so what I'm hoping to do is, even if one person showed up on this live every single week, I will still show up here every single week. That's my commitment. But more importantly is, I know there's no question based on what I'm seeing that Cloudflare is going to blow up in a way that people can't even dream. I know this with some level of certainty, other than I can't predict the future. And I'm certain that there's going to be a demand, a gold rush for people that know and understand Cloudflare. That's inevitable, at least from my point of view. I'm positioning myself to be that because number one is I see that Cloudflare, they're just dropping the ball on helping developers move the stuff. No, that's not to say they're not doing anything. They are. I just feel they haven't gotten their rhythm properly. So I'm trying to be an advocate for it. And I have one goal. My goal is I want this channel to be bigger than the Cloudflare developer channel. That's my goal. When I surpass that, I will go to Cloudflare and I tell them, listen, y'all better be paying me for this. I'm a business person, so I think about business all the time and I play for the long game. That's what I do. The people that come around here and hang out with me, codename Zulu, listen, man, you're one of them. I appreciate you a lot. We're in it for the long haul. We're playing long games here. But that being said, we also want to win and we want to shorten the amount of time and the learning that it takes. As you could tell, there's a lot of details here, specifically with security. And I will tell you, I'll be the first to tell you this. It took me a good 10 years to learn security the way I'm describing it now. No joke, no BS. I never got security. I still don't get security, right? There's just a lot of moving parts. But now I have a concrete model in my head where I'm confident enough that I can at least teach other people not the details, but the high level principles so they have an easier time dealing with this stuff. And obviously because of all this vibe coding, it becomes more and more important. So yeah, you know what? I guarantee you this video here might not get so much live views because we're just into the weeds. But yes, overall, over time, you're going to see people coming back to this video more and more because they're going to need it. It's inevitable. With all this AI coding and stuff, you're going to need all this. And I appreciate the enthusiasm and the support in every way. We're going to go far. We're going to go far. We're only here to dream big and accomplish big things. That's it. Okay. And you know what? As long as you keep showing up and people keep showing up, we're going to build value. We're going to bring value. So I appreciate you. That being said, if you haven't thumbs up, please thumbs up the channel, right? Every support is meaningful. Sign up to the vibe code in dwain.me/school. I really want to build that out and have people that are serious about building. We're still waiting on code. So I'm just talking, killing time while we think. We're going to move on to Stripe and stuff in a bit, but I want to make sure we get this piece in place. So I'll just share stories. Just bear with me on these random stories. I'll tell you another story about why I'm actually doing this, killing time while the vibe coding works. This is one of the beauty thing about writing code is that you don't have to manually write all this stuff anymore. As long as you understand what you're doing, you could just let it do its thing and then come back and check in or whatever. And we're doing exactly that. So let me just tell you a story about why I'm doing this. I spent probably a good 4 years helping my personal family. So I got a fairly decent sized family. I have a group, like a WhatsApp group every Sunday. I meet with them 5 o'clock, 1 hour, and we just learn stuff. My dad is actually on that group as well, and we share business stuff and whatever. Sometimes some people would show up, sometimes they won't. People get busy with family, life happens. I got to a point where it just felt like I have more value to offer the world and I'm just not getting it out. I don't know if you've ever had that itch as an entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs have this thing, right? Or most creators have this thing where you feel like you could do more, you could build more. This was me, but it's like you're just not reaching your full potential. You're just not connecting with a group of people that you wanted to. After I thought about that a lot, I spent 2 years helping a couple of my cousins. Every Saturday I would be on a call with them, training them, going stuff with them. I just feel like they haven't necessarily gotten to the level that I would have liked to see. And that's not a knock on them. They just got busy with life and I got busy also. I've realized that in order for me to make true impact, I need to be more structured about documenting things. And this vibe coding live is one of that. My YouTube channel is a representation of that. To properly start offsetting topics and ideas into a formalized way. Eventually, I'm going to turn this into documents and PDFs and instructions. One, to fast track people's knowledge, but two, to find the people that want to actually go to the next level. I want to find the hidden gems out there in the world that have ideas and they just don't know how to unlock it and just accelerate their growth to the next level. For 20 years, I personally struggled with figuring out how to break through that wall. Like that, this was really big struggle for me. And I feel like I finally am getting those wheels turning. My thing is helping people. That's core to who I am as an individual. We'll show up here every single Friday, 3 hours. We're going to give it 110% every time. One person or 10 people or 100 people. That's just the mission. So anyway, I've blabbled enough and we got code here now. So that's good. Let's see what we got here. Run the migration and put the Auth0 ticket. Okay, so we got to do a couple things here. So let's do the secret part. So we'll do it manually because I want to show you guys this. So we'll go to Cloudflare and we got to go back to our workers. We got to go back to our workers and we got to go to, oh, you know what? It's probably like deep down in there. Yeah, let me just do a deployment to push this up to the top. So can you run a deployment of the latest changes for my backend? Yeah, we're just going to do a deployment to get things going. We'll push that worker up to the top. And then we're going to run the migration script to add tenants to everything. Now, here's where it's going to get a little tricky because we've added a tenant ID and we've set it to not null. So that creates a problem because we already have data in the database already, right? So we got to think about that a little bit. So your backend has been deployed. That should show up at the top. There we go. So that's what I was looking for. Okay, we need to put those secrets in variables and secrets. We need to add the authentication secrets in here. I'm going to do that side by side so at least you guys know how to do this properly because this is important. So we're going to put this here and we're going to go to this guy. We're going to do it like this. And man, I'm telling you, Windows is still much better than the Mac. Mac hasn't figured this out yet. I don't know why. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our vibe coding app here. And we have, come on, monorepo. No, this is the wrong project. We're going to go to this. We're going to put 3 new secrets in there. So we're going to put this one. So variables and secret. So this could be a variable. It doesn't necessarily have to be a secret. We're going to put that inside. Paste that. So that's our domain. Next, we need to put our authentication client ID. So we know which client we're connecting to. Each application gets its own client ID. Put that in. And last, we need to put the secret. So this one here, super important, right? Now, the reason why we're putting the secret on the back end is because the back end is not public. So this one you got to be very careful with, right? Because it literally is access to the security platform. So we're going to change it from text. We're going to change it to secret. And then we're going to paste that value in here. And then we're just going to hope that it doesn't actually show up on live stream. We're going to change the secret any which way, right? So this is a live stream. All this stuff we're just going to delete afterwards. I want to show it to you guys in the raw way. And then keep in mind that secret, once you put it in, you can't edit it, right? You would think that if it's a secret, I find Cloudflare, I would say their security to be iffy, but you would think that if it's a secret and I paste something in here, it would just automatically hide it. But it doesn't, because I think they have to, it should be masked automatically. So now what we're going to do is we're going to deploy the migration. So we're going to run the migration for the database. We're going to run migration, and that's going to create a problem that we have to fix. So we're going to have to create a default tenant ID. Can you run the migration to update the schema? However, we already have data in the database, so we're going to have a default tenant to address the text not nullable for tenant ID. Okay, so all we're saying is that in the database, where is it? No, here, R2. So all we're saying is in this database here, when we explore it, right, we already have a bunch of videos here. This video needs to be associated with somebody, because now we're adding multi-tenancy, the ability to manage multiple users on the same platform. The database is saying there must be a tenant, and we don't have any tenant. Hopefully I'm with you guys. Hopefully you guys are getting some value from that. If there's any single thing that's unclear, let me know. If you are getting value from it, put a 1 in the chat so I know. And with that, we're going to start tackling the last part of this equation. We're at 305, so we got to push a little bit here. I'll try to see if we could squeeze Stripe into this equation, because we got to move. We got to get payments going. We need to be paid. Oh, you know what? We still got one more thing to do on the SQL. Okay, let's just let us run it to his thing. Video tags for the old tables. Yes. Now we're going to have to. So we're just going to tell it if none is specified, then. So there's something I didn't mention. So we do have to put security on this application now, okay? Because when we log in, where are we? So we got our user. After we log in, I mentioned this before, but I just want to make sure that we're good. So, hey, only human web. How are you doing, man? Good to see you. We're just working through the details of authentication. We just got authentication working on our database. We're going to be moving forward to getting Stripe working. Whenever you log in, that data is going to go to Auth0, UTH0. Auth0 is going to say yes or nay, right? That you're correct. You're going to go back here and we're going to get a JWT. I'm skipping over parts, but I just want to keep this simple. So you're going to get a JWT after you do the dance here. There's one more dance in between there. You're going to get a JWT. The JWT, by the way, looks like gibberish. It just looks like a base 64 text. It just looks like garbage text, okay? It's just a quote-unquote encrypted. It's not actually encryption, so don't put private information in there. Just to be clear, it is not a secret in the traditional sense. It's just a base 64. I don't want to use the word encryption because it's not encryption. I'm losing my mind on what the word is, but basically it's just obscured text, right? But you could go to any public website and actually decrypt it. So do not put private information in there. So you're going to get a JWT on every request. Every request, you're going to pass that to the backend, which in this particular case is your worker. Your worker is going to get that JWT, and with its client ID and secret, it's going to make a backend call to Auth0, and it's going to basically get a confirmation of whether that JWT is still valid. Only when it gets that confirmation, it will proceed onto the database. In that JWT will be the tenant ID and the user ID, okay? That user ID is what we're going to append to the logic so that when we go to the database, we know how to do a query filter where tenant ID equals. Okay, so remember, because we always have to filter on the tenant. So because we're just spinning up the system for the very first time and we had data in the database before we had a tenant, what we're going to do is we're going to hard code a tenant ID in here. And what we're going to tell it is if you log in and you don't have a tenant ID, you're going to use the default one for now. So that will deal with making sure we can still access the data that's currently in our database, right? Because we've added a filter onto it. We're just putting a default tenant ID onto it, and then we should be able to go from there. But then going forward, subsequent user, whenever they log in, it's going to hit that thing. Auth0 will call it, and then it's going to create a user ID, tenant ID, save it in its own table, and then update the Auth0. I want to make sure that everybody gets that. Right, because it's a little confusing. I'll admit that it took me years to make sure that for me to get it. And then, so if you don't get this right away, do not beat yourself up. I'm going to beat this into your head eventually. If you don't get this right away, it's okay. It's not the simplest thing to understand at first. Don't be like, oh, I don't get programming and all this kind of stuff. It's one of those things where it just takes a while. I've been a developer for a really long time, and it's only in the last 3.5, maybe even 2 years that it start to like solidify in my brain of why and how it's working properly. Every other time I was just doing it because somebody said I should do it or just following the documentation. What we're trying to do is inject here, just to put it, let me just make it explicit. It'll be something like this: TENANT ID underscore ID equals, and then we're going to put a colon, and it'll be like some kind of gibberish, right? And that'll be your tenant ID coming from our user. And then we're going to have inside of here, user score ID, right? That's what we're trying to accomplish. We're going to inject that back into the application. Every single time, this information is going to be passed around in that JWT, so that when the front end gets it, the front end is going to pass it back to the back end. The back end is going to go back to Auth0, get a validation confirmation, and then it's going to be like, okay, yeah, you're good to go. And then I'm going to extract that tenant ID and use that to filter on the database level. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Put a 1 in the chat if it makes sense. If you got questions, feel free to ask. One of the things I plan to do with the school is I'm going to do an actual security. I'm going to put another in the course section. We're going to have a security 101 with this information. I want to take this information and pass it on to you guys. I want to figure out where the questions are, and I want to refine it. That's the one, the beauty about having the school, because I could get to just iterate and refine the way I'm teaching this stuff in a way where finally everybody could just get it by just watching it and just dramatically simplify the complexity. That's my goal. If you feel like I'm too complex, let me know. From the poll I put out, people want simplified, start small, and then jump to advanced. I'm trying to express that bridge. So let's see where we're at with the vibe coding. Allow run deploy. Now it should give me the default. I don't know if it's giving me a default ID or it's just going to dump it into the database. Let me just see. Would you like to continue? Be made by overriding. Yes, just do your thing. Edits have been made. Publish will override your local code config. Yes, that's fine. Disconnect. Perfect. Multi-tenant live. Let me wait a little bit. Finish. Oh, is it deploying? Let me just... did it? You know what? I hate when I do this. I think it's actually deploying another version of the Cloudflare. We'll find out in 2 seconds here. It tends to want to create new, instead of working on the same thing, it tends to want to create a new worker. Let's see if it did that. 41 seconds ago. Why is this blocked? Yeah. Okay, so that seems okay. Let's refresh that. Yeah, okay, I think we're good. I was under the impression that I was creating a new, let me just double check because I hope it's not creating like a new database or something. Yeah, okay, we're good there too. Fantastic. Okay. Trigger one redirect. Curl seems to be hanging. Why are you platform dev multi-tenant? Okay, let me see if it actually did push up anything in the database. Let's just make sure. So let's go here and let's see if we got a tenant ID column. No, we don't have a tenant ID column. I think what's going on, I think it's, let me just stop this for a second. Let's run it again. D1 batch operation taking a while. Let's skip this. Cancel. I'm going to do a new thing. Can you run this database against production? Make sure that you do not run the database against local. Update my schema to ensure that we have the latest schema in D1. And also, we need to have a tenant ID, a default tenant ID So just add that into our config so that if the tenant ID is not passed from the user, we'll just use the tenant ID to get the details from the database. Because I think what's happening is it tends to run against local as opposed to running against the cloud. I think that's what's been happening. We had this problem before. So 316, okay. Got to push a little bit here because I want to get the stripe, but I don't know if we're going to get there. Let's just see. We're going to try to push a little bit more here. Default tenant ID. Okay, so I did that, which is good. Just going to put a default tenant ID there. Environment variable. Yeah, and by the way, that tenant will be a GUID in this particular case because you could essentially just use that data as sample, right? Like you could use it as a local host. No, we got to go back to production again. So you can use, come on. So here, you could use this as a sample. Did I not fix this? You know what? I'm just going to remove this for now, just for the sake of simplicity. I don't want to deal with authentication because now we're actually adding authentication to it. So that's good. So we can remove this one, Cloudflare. Where is it? Here. This thing here is hidden. This is something that Cloudflare needs to do better work on. You would think that there would be a tab here that says security so that you could deal with this. No, if you click on this little thing here, there's Cloudflare access. It's the craziest thing. This is their security implementation. If I uncheck that, this will remove that box. Like the way their choices of stuff, it needs work. They're working on it, but the feedback on that stuff is a little bit off. So now what that means is if I go back here and I click on this, there we go. This is the video platform API. This is the backend. We also need to get the front end. So this guy here, 6 days ago, we didn't deploy the backend. Okay, we're going to deploy this first and then we're going to go do the backend. Yes. Why did you? No such column. I see the error. Production database doesn't have the multi-tenant column yet. So they need to create a migration script, which was the problem before. The migration was happening, but it was happening locally. We want to have a database thing. If you wanted to make sure that you're doing this right for production, what you would actually do is we would have a local database. The recommended approach, honestly, because Cloudflare is still working on having proper environments set up for this type of stuff. So essentially what you would do, the proper way to do this is you would have the production database. What's going on, man? You'd have a production database and then you would create another database, the duplicate name, right? And you would have it just called dev or staging if you want to do that. So you have two databases. Whenever you're doing development work, you're developing against the staging database. And then whenever you do your production, you develop against your production, right? That would be the right thing to do. Right now, we're not doing that because we're just trying to get the basics going. We don't have any data inside of here that we care about. But if we had customer real data, we would definitely want to separate production from this one. Okay. So I see some more people joined. If you're new here, we're building a mini corporate YouTube platform. We just implemented authentication. We're now doing the database part and trying to get things set up properly. If you are new, make sure that you join the community. I got a link over there, dwain.me. Join the Vibe Coding community, and we're going to basically be talking about vibe coding and entrepreneurship and launching your first production grade application that you could sell. Let's see what we got here. Wrangler, deploy, execute. Yes, execute. So join the community, jump in there. It's free. When we get to up to a certain amount of users, I'm thinking 20. We're going to lock it down a little bit because I want to make sure that I can set it up in a way where I could actually answer and service you guys properly, answer questions, give you personalized set of responses, and thank you personally for being a early supporter of Dwain Browne. Okay, I appreciate that very much. I'm loyal to the people that support me, period. So we got a deployment. Let's check our database. Make sure we're good. Explore, videos, tenant ID. Fantastic. That's what we're looking for. So now we have a way to filter on that tenant ID. And basically what we're saying is all of this video in this particular table right now is for default tenant 001, and that's what we're going to use. So let's just see if we could push this a little bit further. We're pretty behind schedule here. We're going to try to squeeze this out a little bit and go from there. So let's do this. We got the database. We've made some progress here, so we can now properly query. We have to do one thing though. which is, now that we have this working, we need to lock this down, right? Because we haven't done the backend dance as yet. Okay, there's 2 backend dance that we have to do. Number 1 is when that JWT comes in, we need to be able to go back to Auth0 to validate it and bring it back. But the first one that we have to do is whenever the new signup happens, we need to be able to add those tenant ID into Auth0 and then keep a mapping in our system of that. Now, here's the thing. Should we do this or should we not? Let me think about this very carefully. Yeah, this is a good question. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do something new here. So here's what we're going to do. On that backend, so again, I just registered Auth0. We just talked about this. So we hit Auth0. Auth0 is going to make a backend call to our system, our worker. When that worker comes in, what we're going to do is we're going to take that record, we're going to store it in a KV, key value store. So what are we going to store? We're going to take the ID of Auth0 and create our own, and we're going to basically store it as a JSON object in the KV. Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're not going to store it in D1 database. We're just going to store it in its own thing. That's how we're going to deal with this. So let's do this. We got to push a little bit here and then move forward to Stripe, and hopefully we could get something with Stripe going. We'll see. Push it on time. Backend schema, keep going away, close all this. Done. Thank you, sir. Okay, so keep all of that. By the way, please check in your code. If you make some progress, you got every single thing synced up, it's working, check it in. If you're doing vibe coding, you got to check in very often. I haven't been doing that, but that's something that you need to do more frequently than you think. Okay, let's do this. Commit, sync. I was doing something. VS Code is doing something weird there. That's fine. Great. Okay, like I said, we're going to add another API, and we're going to call this an Auth webhook API, and that's going to be responsible for doing the backend store thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to say create a Auth webhook API that's going to take a webhook call from Auth0 for a newly registered user. Now we're going to take that newly registered user and dump it into a KV store. We're going to take the key will be Auth0's ID, and we're going to generate a tenant ID and a user ID. We're going to store that in the KV so that on future requests, whenever we need to decipher the JWT token, we're going to look up the profile information in the KV. We're going to use that to filter records from the database by tenant and potentially even user. So let's get that set up. Bam. Okay, great stuff. Hopefully that's making some sense. The reason why I'm using a KV is because I don't even want to have that information in my database. It's not even relevant to my application. What I'm doing is just basically separation of concern here, right? The KV, it's just responsible for just dealing with authentication. AUTH, right? That's all it's doing. And my database from my application, pure and ignorant of any user profile details, information, anything. Eventually, I might be storing API keys or something. The truth is, I should have a profile information in here. But I'm really giving you guys a way to think about things in a different way, right? I should have a user profile details here because I still want to have control over user profile and preferences. So that's still relevant. We're not taking that away. But what I'm doing here is I'm basically saying, you know what, all of this authentication and user mapping between our system and the Auth0, we're just going to abstract it away, put it into a different system so that in our system, it's clean. It's just a user profile with a bunch of user IDs and tenant IDs, okay? And the reason why we also want to do this, I want to make this one other point here, is because if I have a company and a company has one or more users, all of them will be associated with the exact same tenant ID. That's why we're doing this. When you hear tenant ID, just think company ID. It's just tenant ID used to trip me up a little bit, but basically what it means is just a company ID. All right. So if they're individual users or thing, but this means that later on, if you wanted, you could set up a management portal in the backend. The first person registered could add users into the backend. Those users will have the same tenant ID, right? So they're going to be registered independently, but they're going to have the same tenant ID, which means they'll have a different user ID, but same tenant ID. And then when it comes in here, you're going to have individual records grouped to the same thing. The other way to do this is you would have one tenant in a database. You'd have a database of tenants, right? And then you could have a users table, which has all the users, and you would have a relational reference back to the primary table with the tenant ID. This is a traditional way of doing things, but I'm treating it more like a NoSQL database where I replicate the tenant for every user. That's totally fine too. So hopefully that makes some sense. Hopefully you've gotten some understanding of that concept. Where are we? Yes, by the way, I'm repeating myself here, but I really want to push this community a little bit because this is where I'm going to be answering you guys' questions, etc. We got 7 people inside of here. The goal is to get to 20. And then once we get to 20, we're going to figure out whatever. Everybody that signs up to 20 will be 100% free for life. And then later on, we're going to figure out a membership system so that I can continue to serve you guys and give you my 100% all the time. I really want to make this accessible. This is one thing that's been bothering me a little bit, to be honest with you. I'm a big believer in this. I'll talk about this while let me see if this vibe coding is still going. Hopefully, yes, it's still going. Okay, we'll chat a little bit while all this AI does this fancy stuff. One of my big philosophy is information should be free, implementation costs money. I have a philosophy that I want to give as much information as I possibly can to as many users as I possibly can. If the entire world would listen to me, which they won't, but if they would, 100% free all day long. However, if you're asking me to actually do the work for you, that's when I'll charge you. But I'm happy to give you the knowledge so that you could go off and do it on your own. I will not hold back or gatekeep in any single way in that sort. So that's one thought process that I hold true and dear to my heart. There's another one though, which is conflict. You got to make money. You got to figure out how to think. If you're going to spend 3 hours per week, every single Friday doing this stuff, at some point, this time is going to cost you. It's costing me right now, but it's a good spend of my time. At some point, the group is just going to get large enough where I won't be able to maintain it on my own and I'll need help. I have to make sure the group is sustainable. And sadly, the only way to make any single thing sustainable in this culture, in this society, in this environment is money, period. Hence the reason there's going to be a charge, period. And if you're running a business, you should be thinking in the exact same way. The challenge for me, though, is I still want to make it accessible to people that are just starting out. People that are in Africa that don't have a credit card. This means a lot to me. So I'm trying to find that balance of how do I allow people to get access to the information, but still thinking. I don't know if this group, because I'm new to school, I'm just learning the platform. But I don't know if there's a way to set a tier process. One of the things that I see is they have like a leaderboard here where they have level 1, level 2, level 3, etc. Level 1 and level 2 will be free because all the information that I'm giving you guys right here is just going to be thing, and that's going to give you access to a few classrooms and that kind of stuff. And then going forward, you're going to, if you want to do like more of the advanced stuff, then you pay for it because that allows me to focus on a more narrowed group that have very specific set of problems after you've gone through the first set. But that doesn't mean it won't help the free group, right? That's basically what I'm trying to accomplish. To answer your question here, Q-Soon, the link is literally in, I'm going to drop it in the chat here, but the link is in the purple right above my head. But let me drop it in the chat for you. Please do sign up because that's where I'm going to be providing my value and my help while we do these live streams. This means a lot to me to give people the value. Let me put it this way. If you came to me every single Friday and stuck with this for 3 months, you should be able to build an application, launch it, have all the proper security in place, be able to accept payments, start finding your first set of customers, and have a way of getting money from those customers and putting them on your platform. That's what I want to make sure that you can accomplish for free. I will never, ever gatekeep on that information. And any single body that has help in that way, I will try to help them. But like I said, we got to make money in some single way. So for the things that I'm going to be charging for, it's more like I already have a business. Like I'm running something and I'm stuck at this one thing and I just need your help to accelerate it. Because you already have income and a back-end of some sort coming in, then I don't have a problem charging you for that because you're basically coming to me for my time to help you make more money. So that's a fair trade, right? And that's the bar that I'm trying to set. I just want to be clear with that. I'm not out here to just make a ton of money. We're about empowering people with knowledge, but I want to set a system in place where we could still charge the people that are going to use this information to make more money because they just need some way to accelerate their knowledge. And like I said, if they're asking me to do the work, obviously I'll charge them for it. That's obvious. But when we get to 20 users in the group, we're going to jump into that. We're going to talk about the details on that, right? So if you haven't thumbs up, please do. I see 5 thumbs up. I see 5 people. Great. Fantastic. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. Okay, so let's see where we got. So how does the system work? Let me see what they've done here because we're doing a lot of stuff and I'm not paying attention. And if I haven't said this before, the one thing that you need to be doing when you're vibe coding is you got to pay attention to the code. You have to pay attention to the code. I'm doing this because I know what's going on, but I'm also doing a live stream. I want to make sure that you guys pay attention to what the system is doing. Look at the changes, read through the changes, make sure that it's not doing anything stupid, right? It's AI and it can go off rails, even though there's a lot more guardrails really, but you got to pay attention, okay? I can't stress that enough. All right, so let's see what we got here. Configuration requires my user profile for the nearby space and it needs key value pair here. Okay, so that's wired. And what else do we need? We're going to go key value store. We're going to do store, looking up for JWT. We're going to filter by database and fresh data. This is faster, more flexible, always up to date compared to JWT custom claims. Which is faster? So look up the JWT, filter the database query by tenant from the KV, and then maintain a fresh. Okay, fantastic. Without querying JWT. Yes, that's exactly what we want. We got to go create a KV store. It's new, by the way. For those who don't know what a KV is, I got 5 people here. Put a 0 if you don't know what KV is. KV, this guy here, worker KV. If you don't know what this is, put a 0 in the chat. We're going to talk about this. So we're going to do worker KV here. So I'm going to explain it, but I just want to see if anybody knows what a KV is. Database 0. Okay. We got 1. Great. Fantastic. That's good to know. All right. So let's talk about KV for a second. So we got a 0. KV, key value. That's what it stands for. Worker KV. They call it workers KV. So it's not, and there's actually, I'm going to have to spend some time on the difference between a KV and durable objects, which is a weird concept. Most people understand if you like Redis or Redis cache or any of that kind of stuff, you know what a KV is. Durable object goes over their head. Even for me, I was like, what does this thing do again? You already have a video about this. I was planning to watch it soon. To be honest, I'm going to do a better one. Go watch it. If you like it, thumbs it up. But I'm going to do a better one. I looked at it and I wasn't really trying to teach it as much. I was working through a concept. We're going to do a quick 1-minute lesson here on KV altogether. So KV are basically just, they're just a key value pair. You have to have a key of some sort to access the data. That data could be text, or it could be a JSON object, or it could be a binary. You could actually specify that in the worker itself. And the reason why you want to do that is because it's globally replicated across the globe. So it's extremely fast. I want to be clear with this. That's the reason why you're doing this. When you're doing this, let's use green so it's very clear what I'm drawing. So remember, when you got your application and your application now has to make an API call to your backend now has to make another call to your Auth0, then it has to come back here, then it has to go to your database, then it has to come back here before it gets to the user. There's time involved. So what we're doing is when we get that backend, we're going to store that information in a KV, which is really fast. And that KV will be extremely close to the worker because that's how they have it set up because it's globally replicated, right? So the worker will go to a KV that's right next door. It's not going to go to Auth0 system that's probably like across the country or something like that. It's going to go right next door, like literally probably on the same server, maybe, I don't know, right, to get the data and come back. So it's just going to be extremely fast. You're talking 1 or 2 milliseconds versus 10, 20 or 50 milliseconds. It's significantly faster. So you could then go back to the database and filter on that. So that's basically what we're doing with the KV. It just really helps to keep things super efficient. So that's why we're doing it that way. Let me go back here. All right. So with that, let's go platform. So I'm just trying to copy the name so I have the same name and convention because every time we add stuff here, I'm adding clutter to my account. So is it similar to Redis? 100% similar to Redis. It's Redis, but globally replicated. You don't have to think about replication or the location of the server. It's literally Redis, globally replicated. That's a good way to think about it. right? So we're going to set that KV. Damn it, I lost my page again. So we're going to put that KV here and we're going to name it KV, right? I'm just trying to keep the naming conventions. I think we're going to create it. And what we need now is we need, see here, key, right? So let's say my key is Auth0 user ID 1, right? And in here, I could have some sort of JSON object that represents, I could have my tenant ID and say ID equals blah, 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 right? Comma, blah, blah, blah kind of deal. And then I could just save that. It could be text or whatever. What I'm going to do is whenever I look up Auth0 is going to give me this ID here and I'm going to pull out this value. That's all it is. It's literally a key value pair. You could manually add a key or do it in code. What we care about is this ID because that's the ID to connect to this particular KV itself. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go across here and we need to put that ID. Where is it? So we need a bind in, okay, in a Wrangler that's going to be called user profile, and then it's going to put the key value pair here. So in our Wrangler file, this guy, user profile. So here, this is a placeholder for ID. So that's the KV ID that we need to connect. And then Auth0 webhook starter. So every single thing else is still the same. We're good there. Okay, so I've added the KV. Can you run it against production and test it? Redis is good, by the way. I love Redis. Redis is pretty solid technology. Since I've learned about, because I was using Redis on Azure, and honestly, it was slow. Or anything. Azure is good. I like Azure, but Azure is also slow for a lot of things. If you're paying proper money to Azure, Azure is fast, but you got to be paying hefty bills to get speed. If you're a small customer like me, you're getting the leftover servers, you're in the crap pile. So for that reason, your boot up times, requests, even routing of your data is in the slow lane. They got their express lanes for their big FedEx of the world and all these guys, and you're in the crap pile lane. I've used Redis and I was like, this is way too expensive for what it is. In fact, fun fact, if you store your data in CosmoDB in Azure, it's faster than Redis cache. CosmoDB is extremely fast, like really fast. Now you pay for it. If you pay for it with RUs, if you're hitting that database every single time, it's going to get expensive. But just as a random fact there for you, like in my test, CosmoDB comes out 10 milliseconds, 12 milliseconds. It's fast, especially with this KV type of thing. You could do KV in CosmoDB, which I would recommend if you're trying to keep things simple. All right. Okay, where are we at? We got 5 people in here. Actually, I'm curious. What's your cloud provider? I know T-Zone, you were using Vercel and you were trying to switch over. That's why you mentioned that comment earlier. I'm curious what other people are using. Ramon, are you in Azure? Where's your primary million line of code sitting in which cloud? Or you're probably not allowed to say that. If you are, feel free to share it. I see the Auth0 implementation validation happening earlier in the function, but the Auth0 metadata updates is optional. Okay, what are you doing here, buddy? Let's see. So utilize worker. Oh, interesting. It's actually registering the, is it? No, it's just registering a K value here. That's what it's basically doing. Azure here. Good to, yeah, Azure all the way. Azure is good. Azure is okay. I've said, listen, Azure interface UI is way better than any of the other platforms. Maybe except for Vercel. Vercel actually has Cloudflare. I will die on a hill to say that Cloudflare is one of the best platforms, but when it comes to their UI, not good. Okay, they're working on it. They need some serious help with their UI and need to rethink thing. I've heard good things about Superbase and Vercel. I've used Vercel. I have some accounts on Vercel. I don't use that much just because Cloudflare, I think, is just better if you could get over the learning curve. But Superbase, I actually watched their launch of their new platform, and one of the things that I found out was that one of the real diehard MySQL guy that was just like responsible for doing a lot of tuning on MySQL and bringing it up to like real scale, enterprise grade scale, now is working with Superbase. And they're planning to take my Postgres and break it up and make it into that scalable layer so they could do some really cool stuff. So I'm really watching the Superbase world very closely just for building out stuff. But because it's such a new company, I'm iffy about building large scale applications on them. Like even Cloudflare, I wouldn't put serious data in Cloudflare. And it's not because I don't trust Cloudflare, it's just because first, frankly, they don't even have a system to do that. Storage is a different story, but yeah. Is this thing going or what are we doing here? I'm sure with some GPC. GPC is good. Google is good. Actually, I had most of my VMs, my virtual machines, in GPC because they're way faster. Azure's virtual machines are slower than Google's Windows virtual machine. If you built Windows and host in Windows, you should be the fastest Windows. It makes no sense that I had to go to Google to get better Windows performance in the cloud. We were with GCP for a while, doing a bunch of stuff there until I moved solely to containers, and now I'm just containers all the way. We have a lot of servers that are data center too, but I tend to go for Azure because of the company that you use. I tend to go with Azure because, you know what, Azure is, you could go in there, you click around a couple of times and you could get some stuff done. There's still some things that's confusing. Try going and set in manage identity and security and stuff like that in Azure, and you're like, oh, what the hell's going on? But for the most part, they did a pretty good job on that UI. And fun fact for you or anybody, that UI came from Windows 8. I don't know if you guys remember the Windows 8 interface. That's my main concern with the VMs we used before. You need to upgrade the disks to higher tier. Yes, that's always the thing. Drives me nuts with them. Windows DOWs 8 UI. This guy, you guys are probably too young for this. The Windows UI, remember you had to swipe that way? Right, to start, they had that sort of slide over UI. Windows 8 inspired Azure UI. And it worked for a bit. This one, is it this one here? Yeah, this was the early, is it here? Oh, I'm not going to find it. Anyway, it looked like this. This was the original interface for thing, and it had that slide out menu. I liked it actually, but they outgrew it really fast because it was hard to show all the services on it. So they had to scale. The core of this original UI is still in there. It was just blades. And like this, they did some things really right about this. It was heavily inspired by the Windows UI interface. Listen, you're never too old, okay? My philosophy is you're just evolving. This is my new thing. I'm not old. I'm just evolving. So yeah, I totally get it. Okay, let's see if we can push this through. We're pushing up on time here and I'm just chatting away instead of getting my work done. This is what happens when you're having too much fun. I appreciate you guys hanging out here and building stuff. All of these videos, now that I have this group, I'm going to turn them into even more refined tutorials, right? Don't feel too bad. I missed a couple of things here or some things weren't too clear. We're going to get that refined. We see 2 more people that jumped in here. That's great. That's fantastic. So I'm going to prove you guys in a bit. And yeah, we're going to go. But yeah, no, I'm having fun. I really like that. I appreciate you. All the seasoning all day long. That's too funny. All right, let's see if we could try to get a last minute power run here, try to get some stuff going. And you know what? By all means, listen, I'm so happy I did this group, honestly. I'm not trying to do a sales pitch here, but I am for this group. I'm really happy I did because I appreciate you guys showing up on the live, but I don't know who you guys are. The world is so weird that I can just talk into a camera and I'm talking to a bunch of random people across the globe and I have no idea who you guys are, right? So it would really mean a lot to me when you guys join the group for me to be able to connect with you and learn who you guys are as people, not as internet users. It's just, yeah. So that means a lot to me to be able to connect with people all together. I'm big on people and I will never, ever think. That being said, I am an introvert. So after these calls, I'm done. My brain is, I just need to think. This is the 3rd week in a row. Normally, I take my 3-year-old son out on Friday afternoon. We normally wash the car and just do men stuff kind of deal, right? Just a way to get out the house and do some stuff. And in the last 2 weeks, I didn't do it at all because I was mentally exhausted. Chatting for 3 hours with a bright light shining at your face is not natural. I just want to be clear with that. Anybody that thinks that this is natural, there's nothing natural about this. I decided this week I was going to take him out on Tuesday. So we went out on Tuesday this week just to hang out and think because I was like, I don't know if I'll have the energy after this call to be able to take him out. What's important is family. I can't stress this enough, and you guys will hear me saying this over and over again. family is important. It's super important that you spend time with your family, and just don't forget it. Like, all developers as coders, we get caught up in our world. I'm definitely guilty of it. I don't respond to people for weeks on end, but it's super important to find the time to reach out and connect with people. That's what I'm trying to build here. I'm hoping that we can be an internet family, and maybe even someday, hey, let me know if we get this group big enough, we could set this up as a conference where we can meet up and connect with each other and build the future version, of productivity and entrepreneurs. Like, I coming from a lot of startup groups, because like I said, I've been to a couple startup groups. I've seen the power of other startups working with each other to build something. And I've always had my interpretation of how I would do it. And there were some things I would do different. To give you an insight, the last accelerator that was in upstate New York, and we were at a dorm for 4 months. The accelerator rented out the dorm rooms, and we stayed in there and we just built for 4 months or something like that. And there was a lot of cool energy. But the one thing that got away from it wasn't necessarily the startup. It was, I made some friends. There was just about a group of us. It was only about 4 of us that we were just early risers. We would get up early. I was definitely the early riser, and 2 other guys. We'd get up early, and every day we would just go exercise in the parking lot because the gym wasn't open at that time. And we'd get up at 5:30, we'd go exercise for an hour before we started our startup journey. That was the one thing that I took away. If I was doing a startup group, everybody that joined my group would be required to get up and exercise, period. Because I think as founders and entrepreneurs, like, we get so caught up on the code and the work that we forget our physical body. You need your physical body to do the code, right? So yeah, super important. That was the biggest thing that I took away from it. Hey man, someday you're going to get there. Any tips that I can give you, I will give you for sure. And what I want to see is you doing your own life, bringing out to your own community as well. And yeah, so 100%, like, I'm there with you 100%. All right, so let's see what we got here. Let me just read through this code very quickly before we wrap things up. KV operations, write list, worker registration, successful database. Computer, stop. Database D1, successful retrieve, KV, 5 milliseconds. Okay, so we got that. Let's see if we got any KV inside of here. If I refresh this, click and reload, they don't even have a refresh button under KV on the link. So here, okay, got it. Fantastic. So we got KV, and I think this is coming from Auth0. Let's double check, because it should be coming from Auth0. Where's Auth0? Here. Okay, so it didn't actually register user. I think it was just generating, simulating users altogether. Let's go to actions and triggers. Oh, 22 left on the trial experiment free plan. That's interesting. So we don't have advanced Excel to be entered. So this is created after the user is created. So we need one of these. Done. Secure tenant specific version function. Blah, blah, blah. I'll click on that. And then what we're basically trying to do now is add action, create a custom action, or choose from marketplace integration. The marketplace is probably what I'm looking for. Let me just double check here. So choose from a template. That's what we're looking for. And we want to say multi-tenant action feature, access, post login, show how to check out variables, require authentication, trigger multi-factor. No, that's not what we want to do. Post, set role, set salmon. Where's the webhook? What the hell's going on? Hang on a second. Click start, complete, custom, create an action. Post registration, node 22. Okay, you know what? We got to do it. So backend API call. Okay, create node 22. So basically, it's going to run this code here. And then what we could do is in here, we're going to make an API call to get the details. So what we're going to do, okay, we're going to come back in here because we're vibe coding the whole thing, right? And we're going to say, can you update this Auth0 action to make the API call to our worker in order to pass the right user ID so that we could then generate the tenant and the profile information and the user profile information to save to KV. And then we need to return to the Auth0 and update the user metadata information. Okay. So basically, we need to post the information from Auth0 back to us and then back to Auth0. Now, interestingly enough, I might have done this in reverse because, okay, let's see. So we'll do it this way because I'm just realizing that this action can actually do the entire thing for us, which is exactly what it's doing right now. So let's copy the whole thing, go back over here and then paste it. Oops, copy E. So what we're doing is we're going to call the webhook, which is the workers webhook URL. We're going to post the user ID, which is Auth0's user ID. We're going to post the email address, the verified email address, which is basically the same thing. And the username is basically just their first name, last name, and the created that. So we're just sending some basic information over to them. And we're going to get back a response. We're telling it, when you get back that response, we're going to send you back the tenant ID, and we're going to send you back a user ID. We're also sending you back a role, which is just basic for now. And what they're going to do is they're going to take that information and they're going to set it in the metadata here. So let's just put a deploy here. Can you deploy the latest code so I could test this properly? I'm going to try to test it with a new registration. Confirm that we actually deploy it properly, and then we'll go from there. PM run. Okay. Can you make a screen larger for viewing? Yes, I most certainly can. So let me see if I can. I gotta hide some things here so I could get it bigger for you guys. That's big enough, right? Oh, you know what I should do? I think that's probably also the issue, right? I'm going to try to fix that for the next time. Also, I'm going to try to see if we can get a better system. So we're totally butchering. We're not even hitting Stripe right now, which is just, we're completely failing here, guys. Completely failing, just so you know. Okay, this is considered a failure for me. We're going to figure that out for next time. So we got a KV pair here. We got this. Check. At least we're getting authentication after both. And then we'll just talk very briefly about Stripe, and then we're going to close off because I don't want to be respectful of you guys' time. So option 3, list all KV, right? Oh no, wait, hang on. Let me see what's going on here. Check the user profile registration afterwards. List all KV. Okay, that's fine. We don't care about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to, how do we do this? So we're going to go to the registration of our app. Jeez. Okay, so what we're going to do is just flush it, delete. These are all test users, so it's fine. Because we want to know that it's actually doing real stuff and we don't want to see these offshore test users. Okay, so jump back to workers. It's Friday. I got nothing but time. I appreciate that. The reason why I put these calls between 1 and 4 specifically is because I needed just enough buffer. I got to pick up my kid at 5 o'clock. So it's like I just got to get it out. And then I got just enough time to switch over and then go pick up my kid. Luckily today my wife is at home, so she's going to do that. But yeah, I hear you. So let's see here. So we got... Let's make sure that we got it. But I appreciate you wanted to hang out and chill. Oh man, come on. Where's our YouTube? I didn't deploy it as yet. Sorry. I didn't deploy. Yes, it's showing still 7 days ago. Okay, we're going to run it locally just in its interest of time here. So we're going to run this locally. So let's, come on. Where are you at, bro? Come on. I need to get this guy up and running. Yes, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to run... Actually, we just need to chat again. Let's just do a new window. Keep this here open. That's fine. Can you run the front end for me? Tell it to run the front end. I have to switch directories and all that kind of stuff, and I don't even want to do that anymore. Just switch the directory, run the front end for me, tell me when it's ready so I could just start testing. So what we're going to do now is we got to go into incognito mode. Localhost. Okay, we got a sign up page. We're going to click on sign in. It's going to take us over here. We're going to click on sign up. Now we got to sign up with a new email address. So we're going to do Dwain on finish again. FINUNFINISHED. I'm just going to put a plus sign here, and then we're going to say test 001. You guys know you could do this, right? gmail.com. I love Fridays because it's code. Yes, because it's code day for my team. We share what we learn, just learn something new for the team. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's actually a really good habit to have. Honestly, it's a really good habit. I've been sharing 5 coding tips that I've been learning the last 3 to 4 weeks. I appreciate that, man. Share the knowledge. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. That's the main point. So I'm just using the same email address, but I'm putting a plus sign here just in case you guys don't know that. You could put a plus sign on any Gmail account. It'll go to the same inbox, but then you could segment it. By the way, if you're signing up for random stuff and you want to know who's sharing your email address with other people, do exactly that. Put a plus sign and the name next to it. Then whenever those emails come in, you'll know who's sharing your email address, which is basically the entire world at this point, right? There's no privacy on the internet. So fantastic. Okay, so we got a registration. Now, moment of truth is, let's go back into our data. got to run. We'll see you next time. Watch the end result for every single thing else, but I appreciate you. Let's go to storage and let's go to KV and let's go to KV here and let's go here and come on, reload. So I gotta check out. Oh, did we do a deployment? Damn it. Let me just double check. Come on. Running over time here. So this is a good lesson in Auth0 because now you can go back into the monitoring, look at the logs, and the log should tell you what's going on. So see, it did a successful login, Vibe Code 101 application a minute ago. So that's fine. Verified authentication token. This is 2 hours ago. So this is the one we're looking for. Oh, you know what? I think the trigger didn't run. Did I not save it? Did I not save the action? Post user registration. Oh my goodness. Didn't save the stupid thing. So painful. Okay, hang on. We're going to get this right now. Post user registration. Did I not? I swear I saved that. Oh, backend. Great. Apply. Okay, got to do that again. Where are we again? Localhost. Localhost. Okay, so we're going to close that off. New incognito. Paste there. Sign in. Sign up. Dwain, unfinish. SUD. Plus test 002 at .com. And just use that password. Continue. Gonna go to Auth0. Oh my goodness, where's Auth0 now? Really? I swear the windowing and this thing is just garbage. Did I not have an Auth0? And say, okay, yeah, there we go. Yeah. Let's just go check our logs. So post user, right? But let's go check our monitor and our logs. To a few seconds ago, API operation, maybe. We'll find it. And then go over here, refresh, reload. Oh, that's how we do it around here. There we go. Okay, so there we got it. And just so we know what we're storing inside of the key value pair. All right, so JSON formatter, right? So just so we know what we're storing inside here. So we're storing the authentication, the Auth0 ID. We're storing the tenant ID that we made up. And this could be a GUID or any single thing, right? We're storing the user ID. And then we got the email address that we're storing as well. Right now we're labeling everything as admin, etc. Right? Normally you wouldn't do this. You would just label it as user, right? So just keep that in mind. Everybody, we don't want to give everybody admin unless you have higher privilege. And then last check we need to do is go back in here, Auth002, and make sure that our metadata, oops, okay, this didn't work. There's still a bit of work to do, but we're going to close it off at this one. 002. Let me just make sure that was the one that we did. One. Yeah, that was the one that we did too. Obviously, it was the latest one. It didn't save that information here, which is cool. We're going to fix that in another thing because we're pretty much there now. Basically, what happened is just to make sure that everybody understands what's going on. When the post ran after registration, it called this service here called our service view sample. Come on. What is going on here? How do I expand this a little bit more? Can I not? Oh, wait, where is it? Yeah, I don't know why I can't edit it. That's weird. I don't know why I'm showing it like that. But anyway, maybe I have to zoom out a little more. Anyway, this backend service called our webhook on Cloudflare. Cloudflare saved that into our key value store, and then it returned. But for whatever reason, this API updating the profile didn't work. That's basically what happened. Let me see what you got here. What is the cost of using Cloudflare services that you're developing? Maybe an estimate. I saw $5 for storage, if I remember as well. It's $5. For every single thing that I've been showing you, for the file uploader, the whole 9 yards is $5 a month. That's it, like for every single thing. And that will get you, just so you understand how stupidly cheap this is. It's a good question. Cloudflare pricing, workers. So just so you understand how cheap that is, that will give you this level here. This will give you, this is free tier. It's 100,000 requests per day for free. Okay. And when you pay the $5 a month, it's giving you access to, look at this, 15 million to 10 million requests is included. This includes this, right? The way the $5 a month unlocks the workers free logs, right? So the short answer is there's nothing that you're doing that's you vibe coding right now that will chew up any single thing more than that $5. That's your cost of entry. It's stupidly cheap. So that's the reason why, I keep doing this service. And as long as nobody hijack my account or any single thing, we're good to go. So anyway, I think we've gotten some value here. Oh, yeah. Your problem is that Azure is that you need a lot of service to understand the basics just for basic plan. That's why we use a lot of VMs. Azure comes with a lot of complexity. I'm going to do some more videos on my channel about how I've evolved with using Azure. I have one of them that I did that kind of talks about like the thing, but it's a lot. But this is so I'm jumping on your questions, but yes, number one is I'm going to do an Azure thing specifically on that. And yes, you're 100% right. I am not kidding you. It is that cheap. 100,000 requests per day is, how much money you could make if you have a service that's giving you 100,000 requests per day. That's why I'm telling you. I promise you, Cloudflare, the word will spread about how cheap and how good this service is. And I guarantee you guys are going to be like Christopher Columbus, like spokesman, right? It's just like, say what you want about Christopher Columbus, right? Whether it's true or not, he officially discovered the Caribbean and North America, right? You guys are going to be the spokesman because we're Christopher Columbus team right here, okay? And once the word spread of how cheap it is, America and the Caribbean will be flooded. This is my weird analogy. Anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. So what are we going to do? Next week, we're going to touch the Stripe thing. We didn't get a chance to touch that this week. I apologize. I rambled too much. Hopefully it wasn't too much of a rambling. We had a smaller group this time, but we're going to try to hit next week we were supposed to do build and then do marketing outreach strategies. I want to go end to end with this, but we're going to bring Stripe in there, right? So Stripe we didn't get to do this week here, but we're going to bring that. We're going to bring the landing page over as well, all right? Like I said, we're building end to end. We're not like half-assing this stuff and getting piecemeal kind of stuff. We're going all the way. We're bringing the whole thing true, right? So we're going to do that. So let me see what else you got here. So I'm working on a small project based on React front-end, Convex, Bass. Can this project be hosted on Cloudflare? 100%. What are the services that I need to do? Workers, just workers. Convex is your database, right? For the React front-end, you just need workers. And the only thing that you have to do, this is the best way to do it. I'll show you this in 2 seconds. The problem is Cloudflare seems more complex than it is. So go to workers, and then you're going to click on create account. You go to workers, you're going to click on create application, and you're going to literally do this. You're going to click on import a repository and point that to your GitHub repo. It depends on how deep you're going with Node. You're using your backend as a service. I presume it's JavaScript based. You're using, what are you using? Node, there's about 90% compatibility with workers and Node. If you're familiar with that world, that's basically what it is. And it's workers is where you're basically thinking. But here's what to do exactly what I'm showing you here. Come into workers, point to your repository, and that's basically just connect it to your GitHub repo. When you do that, here's an example. If I click on this guy here and I do that, Cloudflare will automatically detect the repo and it's going to automatically figure out your build scripts and stuff like that, right? It'll do 90% of the work if you do it this way. The only thing you have to do is just give it the name and it will do it and it'll start kicking off a build for you. And that's the best way to do it. If you start running into problems, dump it into GPT and iterate from there. For 90% of the stuff, if it's not a mono repo, not for mono repos, but any single thing else, it's pretty solid about picking up. Doesn't matter whether it's React, Svelte, or Astro that just announced Astro, like it Nuxt.js, it has compatibility with it. Workers and pages are the same thing now. They used to be two separate things, but now they're 100% same. No problem, man. Listen, that's what we're here for, helping each other. Please join the group if you haven't already. Okay, I see 2 pending membership. I won't click on it because it'll show email addresses. If you haven't already, please join the group. When we get to 20, we're going to start locking this down more and provide value. If you got value, thumbs up. I'm going to take this video offline and put the real video on the channel, please thumbs it up. If you got any value, put a comment. It helps the YouTube algorithm spread the word more. By all means, share the link with anybody to invite them to come out to the live. We're here every Friday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Bring your questions. Put your questions in the group and share who you are, where you're from, just so at least we could start a community. And like I said, you got any other questions, dump it inside of there. I'm going to record even little small Loom videos for you guys and put it in the chat. And the link, by the way, is dwain.me/KOOL. Thank you for showing up and thank you for coming out. I appreciate you guys in every single way. So with that, yeah, you guys. Oh, Ramon, please, by all means, stay safe. You got a storm coming your way. Everybody stay safe over the weekend, but Ramon, specifically for you. Have yourself a wonderful day, guys, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye. Oh no, I'll see you in the group first, and then I'll see you next week.